Welcome to Battle Base Delta, and spawning in the bottom left corner as the Cyan Empire, it's Alvin-Tay. And in the top right side, the Red Soviets from Team TNG, it is Chris880. Alright guys, so we have an SVE. We have Battle Base Delta being our starting map. That means that things are going to get mixed up. This is, of course, version 0.6. Of course, this map is made by Yellow Jacket, and we do have 2 oil derricks out on the map, but we also have 2 garages. And as we've seen in other maps, garages can be exceedingly important in any matchup, but particularly ground-based matchups where lots of vehicles are used. Maybe garages aren't as important if you're playing allies and you're planning on going infantry with aircraft support. Maybe in that sort of a scenario, it is not quite as useful. But for Soviets, and for an Empire player who likes Tangus, VXs, or Tsunamis, as long as they're on land, then the garage is indeed a good choice. We have a fast third refinery coming out from our Empire player. Alvin-Tay is also going to be grabbing his oil derrick as Chris is doing the same. Chris splitting up a couple of flak troopers, sending them around the map, and as you can see, he's leaving one part of his ore refineries open so that he can, of course, escape on out of there if he needs to escape from the Tangus. Dojo is coming in, might actually get the crush on the Bears. No, the Bears do manage to barely escape. Unfortunately for Alvin-Tay, he's not going to be getting any sort of quick kills. And I think someone... Yeah, so if you guys want to use CNC Online, I do have a tutorial on my YouTube channel that you can check out, or just go to cnc-online.net. That's for you guys in the chat. War Factory into Super Reactor for Chris880. Neither one of these guys have yet gathered their garages, which again, as long as you have got Tangus out on the map and they're transformed into the ground attack mode, they will receive those repairs. And that is in battle as well. It repairs universally, globally, all of that good stuff. If you're in battle, boom, you get repairs. Easy peasy. Interesting, Chris is actually going to be popping down a couple of terror drones right where the Tangus would end up landing. He keeps rearranging where he wants his terror drones. Now, unfortunately for Chris, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to get this oil derrick killed. He will end up getting chopped up by that Imperial Warrior, but he got some damage done, and that is going to be costing Alvin-Tay just a little bit in those repair costs. Alvin-Tay is going to be going for, it looks like, the garage, but also a little bit of Tangu harass potentially. And lots of players don't like Tangu harass just because it's hard to be efficient with it once you get up towards the higher levels of play. Oftentimes you end up spending more on the Tangu harass than the damage that it actually does. Now, the kind of unfortunate thing for Chris is that he's been behind economically for quite some time. As you can see, Alvin-Tay going to be stationing a couple of Mecha Tangus near his third refinery. He wants to make sure that he's staving off any terror drone harass because, of course, you can't wall into that refinery, so you're going to need a naval yard or something similar to keep your harvesters safe. Third refinery going to be coming down for Chris880. And you may be looking at this map and thinking, okay, I can kind of see the similarities between, you know, a map like Battle Base Beta, but it's got quite a few differences as well. Do not be fooled into thinking that it is indeed going to be the exact same map as Battle Base Beta, because it's quite a bit different. Hammer tanks going to be coming down from the high ground. Now, there is a couple of Tangus here on the ground, and as you can see, once they transform into the air, they do not receive any sort of repair benefits, and well, Alvin-Tay hasn't actually grabbed the garage until just now, so he didn't actually receive those repair benefits anyways. So too bad for him, but he has now got that underway. Airfield coming down for Chris880. Of course, he went fast tier 2, so he's had that option available for quite some time. We could see him go into some sort of twin frog composition. And the other thing that is very important is killing your opponent's garage, because if Chris can lock down that garage of his opponent, then of course that will give him an advantage in the ground battles. And similarly, if Alvin-Tay can lock down the garage of his opponent, knock out Chris's garage, then suddenly Chris's hammer tanks are a lot easier to deal with, especially if Alvin-Tay is indeed the one with the garage. If they both kill each other's garage as well, then it's, you know, they're on equal standing. At any rate, Terror drone going to be coming down, potentially using for that stasis ray, just to lock down any sort of units that pop on out of there. Tengu's going in for the harass, and of course with honorable discharge, they will be able to do a little bit of extra damage to the refinery and the harvester. Alvante trying to transform as many Tengus as possible into that little area. He is going to be focusing down this ore collector, and of course with those repairs, it won't quite be as easy to kill off any of the ground units, especially that adaptive armor on the harvesters. And now that 2 Tengus have gone down, it's not quite worth it. Although if he cleans up 2 twin blades, then it's going to start to be worth it for Alvante, as he completely locks down those 2 twin blades and just wastes all of those credits for Chris 880. Of course, Harvester's going to start healing up, which means you don't have to worry about getting them brought off the line or anything like that. There's, again, another transform on the Tengus, really trying to lock down this 3rd refinery, which is actually kind of okay for Alvante. He does have a fair number of tsunami tanks, and also he's got that 3rd refinery economy advantage over his opponent, and he's had it for quite some time, so he can afford to trade away some of the Tengus in this harassing force before it's, you know, like really inefficient for him. And there's actually going to be the transform and potential target down of the MiG. Now, one of the Tengus does go down, but honorable discharge means that it almost, well, pretty much brings that airfield down to half HP, which is a little bit unfortunate there for Chris 880. Now, the Tier 3 is on the way for Alvante. Nanotech mainframe on the way, and of course he's already got that Tier 2 purchased. Now, he does actually have a naval yard coming out to the water. He potentially could be going to add on a 4th refinery relatively soon as well, but for now, he may just be looking to go up to that Tier 3 Shogun battleships. Potentially, we could end up seeing some King Onis, although lots of Empire players don't like to do that because of the use of terror drones by Soviet players. Those big Tier 3 units can sometimes feel like a waste of time and money if you just end up getting them locked down repeatedly by terror drones. Burst drone over on the right side for Alvante. And it looks like Chris is going to be going for a little bit of infantry. He's only got a couple of hammer tanks out here on the front line. And there is going to be the Badger bombers dropping their toxins, the Desolator airstrike coming in for Chris. And he's going to be able to finally clear away the garage of his opponent. But has he let too much time elapse? Because his opponent might have too many forces for that garage to even be a deciding factor in this game. At any rate, we've got 5 Tengus heading off to the north side of the map. They're taking a little bit of flak damage from that garrisoned infantry. But really, since they've got point defense drones, it's not too big of a deal. And this could actually be a big transform to go ahead and kill off the garage for Chris 880. Chris 880 clears out the garage of Alvante, going to be turning around his hammer tanks, heading on back home. And he's also pumped out a couple of bears just to deal with the earlier infantry of his opponent. So both of these guys looks like they're going to be cleaning up the harvesters of their respective opponents. There's the 4th refinery and the 5th refinery coming out for Alvante. Going to be just cementing his sort of economic advantage over Chris 880 in this game. However, we do have Tengus getting targeted down, and of course the Leech Beam going to be keeping them from really dealing too much damage to the hammer tanks. Nice micro on the terror drone from Chris 880, stopping the transform of those Tengus, stopping them from getting away, kind of getting as much value as he can out of his units. But Alvante has been ahead in that economy game for so long. He's ahead in the technology game as well, assuming he's actually teched up to Tier 3, which I can't actually tell if he has, but he has indeed. So Alvante is ahead in the economy, he's ahead in the technology, but can he actually seal the deal with a good engagement? Because sometimes it doesn't matter in which ways you're ahead if you take really bad engagements. Now Chris trying to micro back his terror drones, trying to, well, I don't know if he was trying to split his hammer tanks there, but he certainly did move one of them forward, potentially to stop that bull rage from the King Oni from actually doing all that much. Now a couple of infantry mixed in here, a couple of Imperial warriors hoping to stop actually this terror drone, but they're not actually doing that. They should not be engaging the hammer tanks. Alvante definitely should have cleaned up that terror drone because that is locking down several of his King Onis from actually doing anything. And I mean, that Terror Drone has more than served its purpose. It's bought so much time for Chris. Now, Twin Blades would be a good thing to have, but even Twin Blades take so long to kill a King Oni. And unfortunately for Chris, this expansion is basically void at this point. He is going to be forced to sell it off. He's already been running his MCV to the high ground, and Alvante may just continue to outplay Chris on basically every front. Now up to that tier 3 at the naval yard. He's got the Shogun battleship. He can start assaulting this base from the low ground, from that water, and from a safe distance. He could potentially even start targeting down these more important structures. I'm not actually sure if... I'm assuming the Shogun battleship can indeed reach that. They've got pretty crazy good range. 4 King Onis in the middle of the map with point defense drones. A 5th one going to be joining up, and potentially a 6th one on the way as well. 1 Shogun battleship is already out, and of course the burst drone can provide vision if necessary for that Shogun battleship. Terror Drone in the middle of the map, and of course Chris 880 could still win this game if he ends up taking a really good engagement. There's the Shogun battleship going to be targeting down the airfield, removing any potential for those twin blade sort of counterattacks, which can be effective for players. Now, with 4 King Onis not being locked down by the Terror Drone, it's going to take the micro of Chris to really make this work. There's the Bull Rush from 1. It does get locked down in its tracks, and the Hammer Tanks are in pretty good numbers, but can they actually finish off the King Onis? As Alvante, in a straight-up battle, would be able to trash through these Hammer Tanks, but he's not being able to engage properly. He's getting locked down by the Terror Drones. Maybe not as effectively as he could be, but he needs to make sure that he's engaging well at all points. Bear's going to be absorbing some of the shots here, and Tesla Troopers trying to get on top of this army to start dealing with the King Onis and locking them down. Unfortunately for Chris, it's not quite working out. Alvante continuing to play to his strength, utilizing a bit of harass from the Tsunami Tanks, and also utilizing artillery to waste Chris's bases and refineries from afar. Cleaning up the airfield is a nice move. Cleaning up the refineries is an even nicer move for Chris, or for Alvante. And again, the King Onis just going to get trashed here, but it still doesn't feel like Chris 880 has any sort of real control in this game, just because of how far ahead that Alvante has put himself. Not actually sure why he pulled off these 2 Tsunami Tanks. He could have continued with the assault. He could have moved in a little bit further on that refinery and just probably killed it off completely. But at any rate, Chris has basically one opportunity to make this work. If he does not get a dream engagement here, if he does not end up taking this particular... Oh, Chris, no, not that select all hit F to use special abilities move. Don't do that. Although, if these Tesla Troopers were not being focused down by the... Actually, they're not being focused down by the Tengus at this point, and they could end up locking down some of these units, or quite a few of the units from Alvante. One of the King Onis does go down. The Bear comes in for the roar. It gets eliminated by one of the King Onis. Eventually, there, it does end up getting locked down, and now the King Onis trying to split against these Hammer Tanks, trying to figure out which way they want to end up going, and the Terror Drone does get targeted down. Nice control there from Alvante, finally eliminating that one threat, the one thing that really held him back from crushing through this entire army of Chris 880. There's the GG, well played, comes down, and Alvante will take game number 1 in this best of 3. And that is the first game of the New Year, New Maps tournament. Battle Base Delta, not Beta, going to be our first map there. And we've got more and more action to come, so don't go anywhere, guys. Welcome to Island Arena, and on the right side, as the Red Soviets, from Team TNG, it is Chris 880. And on the left side, as the Cyan Empire, hailing from Diversity DBT, it is Alvante. Island Arena is the map. This is another one of those dual garage maps. Kind of interesting in that respect. A lot of these New Year, New Maps, well, not a lot, but literally more than, the old map pool, have that double garage. If you think about the old map pool, the standard map pool, only Industrial Strength has a garage. And yet Battle Base Delta, Island Arena, both have 2 garages, and I believe one of the other maps has at least 1 garage. Don't actually remember, though. So yeah, the double garage is, of course, the point. And the other kind of interesting thing is On this map, there's no oil derricks, which is kind of weird since one oil derrick per player is kind of the standard on maps. But in this particular game, we're not going to be seeing that. Now, it was once again fast third refineries from Alvin, and it's up to Chris to identify that. It's up to Chris to figure out if it was, or what exactly happened in that opening, what exactly his opponent is going for. And really, Chris should get here with his bears, and he should be like, no Mecha Bay. I didn't see a huge amount of infantry out on the map. So did you go fast third refinery? Oh, those bears waiting until the last possible moment may end up getting cut off by the dojo. No, the jukes are so real right now from Chris. Those incredible jukes just cutting it so close there with his bear control. And as long as you've got a little bit of space, you can often just avoid those dojos without a huge amount of trouble. But Chris is going to be moving in here. He's going to be trying to lock down these dojos, and they might end up just getting the crushes. Oh, the incredible anti-jukes, as the split of the dojos there from Alvin was not actually good enough to do anything. He's going to be forced to bring his harvester off the line. He is going to take a little bit of damage on this refinery, and Chris is even going to be running his flak trooper, just being as annoying as possible. It is going to be super reactor after the war factor, and actually, oh my word, 2 terror drones going to be heading out. This is the perfect play here from Chris. He's just juking this harvester around. Now there is the Mecha Bay out on the field, which means, oh, the Tengus are already out. These terror drones have very limited viability, but they can lock down this Tengu, and that is the perfect move there by Chris. He's going to be doing what he can to lock down the eco of his opponent, but he's only going to be able to lock down the 2 Tengus, and now he's out of terror drones. So what's his follow-up? It is going to be hammer tanks. He needs to take a third refinery relatively soon. He needs to start matching the eco of his opponent, and if he would have scouted this, he could have gone down here and hit this harvester with one of his terror drones. Now, he is going to be forcing Alvin to build some walls, and unfortunately, Chris does lose one of the terror drones there. The other one will be able to back off. It is not going to be quite ideal for Chris, just because he did build those 2 terror drones and hasn't gotten a lot of value out of them. He's going to be locking down an additional Tengu, but really locking down the Tengu doesn't do all that much. It's not exactly a game-winning move, but it is rather annoying to do to your opponent. Chris adding on the sentry gun in the middle of the 2 ore refineries so that he can run his harvesters towards the middle for that safety and protection. And these walls from Alvin are actually kind of ridiculous and a bit silly, but Chris is keeping up the aggression. Alvin did not transform that Tengu in time. I think originally it was here to deal with the bears, but unfortunately Alvin didn't ever actually use it for that. And Alvin, despite the 3 refinery opening, seems to not really have any cash. He could be going for the tier 2 so he can finally get out some sort of units to start contending with his opponent, but his dojo did get locked down, and now finally the terror drone is, the Tengu on the other hand is going to be able to clean up these bears. It's going to be able to deal with those units without too much trouble, and then Alvin can start to pump out the infantry that he needs to help break this contain, because right now this is the most annoying contain by Chris, like, at all. Chris has done such a good job of just wasting so much time and money for Alvin. And unfortunately for Alvin, he's done some weird things to his base in terms of walls. I mean, look at those walls that he had to throw down just to try to keep himself safe. He has cleaned up the bears. He's cleaned up, well, he didn't so much clean up the hammer tank, but he did push them away. And of course, the terror drones are no longer harassing his units immediately as they pop out. Walls. I feel like this is a tower defense map with the way that he's constructing his base here. It's not exactly something that you normally do, and my fear is that Chris never actually scouted out here. Now, he may have. I guess he did. I guess he does know that that 3rd refinery is there, which is kind of curious as to why he didn't send at least one of his terror drones down there. He could have even sent one and just used the stasis ray. He doesn't even have to infect, although if he did infect, he most likely would be getting the kill there. I mean, it's not like it's going to be able to run all the way back to the Mecha Bay. Actually, if it gets on land, then it probably would survive because he's got the garage. But if Chris would have gone there first with his double terror drone, then he would have been able to lock down that harvester no problem. And one thing that is really powerful on this map can be these air units. Just because of the limited ramps, it's not like the entire thing is shoreline. So if you end up going from land over to water, you can create some really annoying paths that ground units have to take. And for now, the garage is going to be getting cleaned up. A good move there by Alvante. He wants to clean that up before the big engagement. Because, of course, with those nano deflectors on his tsunami tanks, he's going to have such an incredible HP advantage over these hammer tanks. And I believe that hammer tanks technically have more armor or more health, but tsunamis do a little bit more damage because they have like 2 shots that count as a clip instead of just 1. But in this particular case, the third refinery is coming up for Chris, being harassed a little bit there by Alvante. And Alvante, he's looking to take his engagement. He's been annoyed so much by Chris in this game that he wants to seek out revenge. This SimCity, man, this SimCity, it's so glorious. I keep coming back to it because it's just so incredible. But Chris has to engage very carefully. He's going to need some units that are not just straight up hammer tanks to really help him deal with this army. And of course, he also needs to activate that adaptive armor on his harvesters. Oh! Both of the chopper VXs do end up escaping. Those are value VXs is what they should be called, because they not only killed off the garage, they got the sentry gun, and they did a fair bit of damage to the harvester, but they also escaped. Very important for Alvante there. Now the Bears coming forward. There's going to be the roars and the charge from the tsunami tanks trying to lock down the Bears, but Chris, he's making the counter play. He's going for the crushes with his MCV. Now it looks like the tank busters are still around, and they are going to be doing a little bit of annoyance if Chris ends up walking away, but the tsunami tanks getting locked down. Good call from Chris, pulling his terror drone off a little bit early. And Alvante, he's not steamrolling Chris in the same manner that we saw him do in the last game, but he is the one on the offensive. He is the one doing damage. And, I mean, that one Imperial Warrior, oh, he actually is going to be sniping down that, no, he's almost going to be sniping down that terror drone, but he's not quite necessarily going to be getting it. If he ends up killing off the terror drone, then that is a value warrior because he is worth his weight in gold. A good move here by Alvante. While Chris is busy dealing with the forces in his main base, Alvante, oh, and Chris never actually put that harvester back to work. Alvante is going to be hitting the third expansion, the third refinery of Chris. And actually, Bullfrog's heading over to deal with these tank busters and Tengus is not a good idea. He, of course, needs a little bit of that hammer tank support just to help him deal with the Tengus. However, the Bears did make a valiant effort. However, Alvante is on top of that micro and hitting that F key. He knows how to select both the tank busters in an area, hit the F key, and make them basically invulnerable to those Bears. Interesting fourth refinery location for Alvante. It's either a massive misclick or he is indeed going for the expansion out on the water. Hammer tank's going to be rolling up, and these tank busters may eventually get cleaned up. No, they both go into their spider holes, which will help them survive that little bit longer. And Chris's Bears just rolling up a little bit too late. However, we do have a couple of Striker VXs moving out, and the Bullfrogs are here for support, which means these Chopper VXs are not going to have as easy of a job moving in here. Now, they are going to start targeting down one of the Bullfrogs, but they are forced to pull back because with good control, the Bullfrogs will win in basically every scenario. But again, because of the way the water works, this is a bad example, but because of the way this water works, you can escape with air units really quite easily. Chris has done a considerably better job of staying on top of Alvin in this particular game, but Alvante, with that fourth refinery advantage, is going to start pushing ahead, and of course, with the garage, Alvante is almost always going to be taking more efficient engagements. It's up to Chris to micro his way to better engagements. Now, we haven't seen Chris go for, oh, actually, his MCV is still in the middle of the map. Well, we haven't seen him go for Twin Blades. We haven't seen him clean up the garage of his opponent, and now he's going to be rolling into a place where Alvante will have not only defender's advantage in the repairs of his main base, but he'll also have that garage advantage. Now, if Chris can lock down this nanotech mainframe, that'll be a lot of cash that was not spent on the army for Alvante, but that was spent on infrastructure that he can't utilize. Completely shut down there by Chris. Alvante does have a contingency of air units in the north side there. Could be going for the third refinery again for that harass. And that was actually a really good shot from that Tengu, that honorable discharge, man. Sometimes it is just so powerful. Tengu's coming down for the harass. Alvante misclicking a little bit there is going to be sending them to the wrong part. And, oh, those tank busters, really, Alvante gets them all locked down, all eliminated. And pretty much everything is going, well, almost everything is going wrong. He's getting some extra shots off with his Chopper VX, but unfortunately for Alvante, not even the Chopper VX will be able to save him, as Chris knows how to build anti-air. Tengus are on the harass inside of Chris's main base. This could turn into a weird kind of base trade scenario. As, oh, those tsunami tanks almost not able to eliminate the bear, but I'm not sure if it was that or the Tengu that actually got the kill. And now Chris does have the superior numbers. He's got the Badger bombers dropping those Desolator airstrikes onto that barracks, which will be shutting down any infantry production by Alvante. Now, Alvante, can he actually escape with anything? Because, yeah, his extra economy out here won't be doing him a lot of good if he doesn't have any production structures. And again, Chris doesn't have the aircraft, so he can't quickly, easily scout the map and do that bit of harass to clean up something like a naval yard. He's going to be thinking that he's doing A-OK. He's going to be thinking that he is high on this game and that he's doing absolutely great, when actuality, Alvante still has the comeback potential. Now, Chris is doing the best job he can. He's going to be rolling into this base and just destroying absolutely everything. He's engaged correctly for the majority of this game. But can he continue his momentum and take this entire map? Well, very possibly here, as that incredible opening from Chris ended up working out so well in that it just disrupted Alvante. Alvante, oh, giving away a Tengu or something, it looks like, and he is going to be finally hitting on some of these refineries, taking them down, but the Mecha Bay is out, the MCV is out, even the barracks is now gone for Alvante. Yeah, he still does have the economy, which means this naval yard is all he's got, and it looks like he's not producing all that much from it. Chris is going to be repairing that refinery. I'm assuming he's going to start rallying some units over there to help him deal with those Tengus. But for now, he's actually not doing anything to save that refinery, which is a little bit troublesome. But at the same time, Chris is tearing through the main base of his opponent, and Alvante has no real way to stop this force. And I would have assumed that he would have, gone tier 2. How does he not have any money at all? Like, Alvante has to just be floating cash, right? Right? Oh, okay. Yeah, he's floating 6K, but he's trying to get an MCV, which is why it looks like it's not even moving because of the low power mode. And unfortunately for Alvante, he's spending that money trying to get out a MCV, but he's not actually going to have anything. I mean, MCV makes sense in a lot of ways, but unfortunately for Alvante, he's just not spending the cash on hand. And now that he's cleaned up one of the refineries, is he going to be able to do any more harassment? I should think the answer is probably going to be no. He is going to be pumping out harvesters. Chris, I mean, he's got the mass warbear strategy. He has got the mass warbears. Oh, gifting another Tengu. Alvante, he is loving the Chris Tengu fund. Although these bullfrogs are going to be getting eliminated. The garage still stands for Alvante, which means, I mean, every engagement that Alvante can take is going to be all right. Chris, on the other hand, going to be dropping down that refinery. Dropping down a naval yard as well, pretty much right at his opponent's front door. I don't know, is Chris, like, not actually... I think this is the first time that Chris has actually spotted this expansion. He's like, oh! Oh. Wow, if you would have actually been building units out here, I would have been in trouble. But again, Alvante is still not able to really produce anything efficiently. Yeah, as you can see, Chris is just splitting units to, like, every corner of the map. He's like, where are you, Alvante? I know you're somewhere, but where are you? Alvante is actually going to get this MCV out, unless he leaves the game. But he's actually going to get it out. He won't really be able to do all that much with it. But, I mean, he'll have an MCV. Imperial Warrior left over from that refinery. Chris turning this series around. He's going to be able to lock it up. 1-1. And there's the MCV deploy from Alvante. He may need to get a power plant out pretty much immediately. We'll see if he's actually able to mount the most incredible comeback we have almost seen. I would really love it if Chris just grabbed the garage of his opponent. Use some conscripts to clear out the building. Send the engineer over. You gotta hand it to Alvin Tay. He is doing what he can to win this game. Those bears, they're not gonna have a very good day trying to fight against this Yari mini-sub. There's the Stingrays. And with good Stingray numbers, Chris can overwhelm these forces, but he's not even streaming them across the map. Now he's just going to Kula subs, which is probably the more appropriate choice in this case. Double power plant right out of the gate, and Alvin Tay doesn't have a lot of economy. Although, actually, if this Badger Bomber misses, it shouldn't miss. The Desolator airstrike has a pretty wide range. But if it would have missed, if Alvin Tay would have been paying attention, he potentially could have finished off that War Factory, and that would have been the great start to a comeback. However, this Tengu is actually cleaning up quite a few bears there. It's going to have to pull back from the hammer tanks, lest it be destroyed. Nope, and he passes off some nice heroic veterancy to one of those hammer tanks. That Harvester is going to be there for a while, but Chris can, of course, activate that special ability. And Alvin Tay, he's going to kill himself one of the Akula subs. He's actually just going straight tier 3, so he has no illusions that he's going to be able to win the numbers game. He's like, nope, I'm going right up to that nanotech mainframe. If Chris just built aircraft, that would be pretty good. I can't imagine Chris is spending all of his money either. Now, he's got 1,800, so he is doing a pretty good job of spending his money, but not as good of a job as he could be doing. Alvin Tay only sitting at that 1K, of course, now that he can actually produce stuff. He is producing stuff. You have to give him that. Alvin Tay is actually producing things, but now with no refineries, surely this is going to be over. He's actually pulling his Harvester out to the water so it can't be crushed. Oh, Chris, just go air. If you would have gone Twin Blades earlier in this game, it would have been much better. Yeah, Tengus can shred aircraft, but in this sort of scenario, Chris would be doing all right. Hasn't also established that third refinery back up and running. He's just going to be relying on this refinery to be his third refinery. Repairing that War Factory, trying to keep it alive. If that would have been a Shogun battleship, things would have been a little bit different. But it's not. That's a Harvester. Alvin Tay, what is he actually doing? He doesn't have a refinery. He doesn't have any income. If he sold off everything, he still wouldn't have enough money, I don't think. And he's actually repairing that naval yard. So he has even less money. He can't build anything. Is he literally just hoping that Chris is going to get bored and leave the game? I'm not actually sure what the game plan is here for Alvin Tay. There's the sell-off of the MCV at 2,400 credits. He's going to try to power it into some units. I don't know why. I really don't. But he's going to do it. Oh, he killed a Stingray. That's surely going to stop the onslaught. Chris pulls back his bears so that he can activate that special ability. There we go. The naval yard is so close to actually going down. Alvin Tay has been defeated, and Chris takes the score to 1-1 in this best of 3. And of course, this is the New Year, New Maps tournament. So we have Island Arena, our next map, but the choice goes back to Alvin Tay for what exactly he wants to play on. So we'll see what he chooses. Welcome to Hard Lesson, spawning in the south side as the Cyan Empire from Team Diversity. It is Alvin Tay. And in the top right side, taking back that game, number 2, the Red Soviets from TNG, it's Chris 880. Now, the first game in this series, a bit of a shutout, a bit of a slam by Alvin Tay. Game number 2, Chris reacted a little bit better to what Alvin was doing. And it looks like this refinery is going to be taken the long way, otherwise, or else Alvin wants to grab this expansion down here, which would be a little bit weird for him, but I guess it's something that he could do if he really wants to. Now on this map, we've got the 2 oil derricks in the north, which are a bit far away, but they're still relatively easy to secure as long as you open up with that barracks. Chris going to be packing in a couple of flak troopers just to get his defense up and going. Alvin, of course, again, opening up for the really far away 3rd refinery. And Chris, at this point, he should have recognized that, okay, my opponent opened up fast 3 ref 2 games in a row. There's a possibility at the very least that he's going to open up fast 3rd refinery in this game as well. But is he actually going to be, doing that? So it's up to Chris to figure that out. At this point, he should see, like, okay, you went 2 refinery, unless I'm missing a lot of infantry that are out on the map. With the Mecha Bay this late, you most likely did indeed go for that fast 3 ref. Super reactor coming down from Chris, and he is going to be going for those terror drones once again, potentially going for the same 2 that he went for in the previous games. No, goes into a sickle after that terror drone. He's got a couple of bears scouting out his opponent. Both of these guys did grab their oil derricks relatively early on. Chris may be following up with a... Nope, he's not following it up with any sort of terror drone. He's also not going to be following up with a fast 3rd refinery, although you can kind of expand towards your opponent on the land if you so wish. And this refinery was established pretty darn late for a fast 3rd refinery, but the walls are coming up. The Sim City is getting so real. And, I mean, the dojo is on the inside. It's away from the bears this time, which is very important for Alvin. And, oh, Chris donates away that terror drone. But Alvin, he's dropped a lot of money on walls. I feel like Chris should just go for Twin Frog. Just go Twin Blade Bullfrog. Some sort of combination like that. Now, the bears are going to be all getting cleaned up. They've got to get on out of here. They have got to evacuate the premises and leave the immediate vicinity. Just single terror drone, a single sickle into tier 2, into hammer tanks with some bullfrog support. Chris loves his hammer tank bullfrog combos. It looks like his MCV, unfortunately, not moving out to that 3rd refinery location. Could be down here, or he could be going for the water expansions if he really wants to. The bear's finally going to be getting cleaned up by that Tengu. And the sickle, I mean, he's at the 3rd refinery location, but Chris hasn't quite realized where that 3rd refinery actually is. Oh, that Tengu almost escaped, but Alvin just did not give it enough move commands to truly escape the wrath of the bullfrogs. Actually, I guess it's just one bullfrog. The wrath of the bullfrogs, singular. 3rd refinery will be on the land for Chris. Otherwise, he's going for a very weird MCV move, and he's gonna, he's gonna base creep his way down to that refinery, which would be pretty incredible if a player just never moved their MCV and they just continuously base creeped all the way down to a really far away expansion. It would just be like, why? Why would you do that? Alvin pumping out a couple of more Tengus, and he is going fast, tier 3. I guess he saw, some of those Kimi no Uji games. He saw some of those shenanigans with very fast Eurikos, and he was like, I want to do that. I want to do that also. I want to be that player who goes for fast Euriko and just totally wrecks the other guy because they're not expecting it. Of course, Twin Blades can shut down Euriko pretty darn fast, as long as you have more than, like 2. Because if you just got 1, it's going to get totally destroyed by Euriko. She kills aircraft so quickly. The tier 3 is up. The tier 2 has been purchased at the Mecha Bay, which of course means that if Chris is able to lock down that Mecha Bay, that's a lot of cash that Alvin spent getting that tier 2 up. Now, he is already starting to work that tier 2, get some of his value back from it with those chopper VXs. Plating up the hammer tanks, and the bullfrogs are a little bit far away. So 2 hammer tanks down the drain for Chris. Not exactly good, but he's doing a better job of staying on top of Alvin Tay's economy in this particular game. It would be nice if Chris actually went out and harassed the oil derrick of his opponent and cleaned that up at some point. But the faster airfield in this particular game for Chris, going to be countering any potential units from Alvin Tay. But there's the 4th refinery for Alvin Tay. He knows he's bought himself some space. He knows he's bought himself some time. And with his harass going relatively well, I mean, he was able to clean up the harvester, so that's well enough. He's going to be really happy to get that 4th refinery up and going. If he can pressure Chris a little bit, if he can keep Chris locked up in his, kind of part of the map, if he can keep Chris distracted in this area of the map, then taking that 4th refinery is going to be really quite easily. I mean, Chris has lots of harassment opportunities in Twin Blades, in Terror Drones. I mean, he could even go for Stingrays if he really wanted to, although that is a bit more of an investment since he's already got the War Factory up and running. But a couple of a couple of Terror Drones over here potentially could do some damage. He, of course, has to worry about the Tengu, but the Tengu is in a pretty bad position to actually guard these places. And now the Naval Yard is on the way. So that window of opportunity for Chris to do some harassment damage easily with the Terror Drone is dwindling. Maybe if he got the Infect on the docks core, but again, Chris has not been particularly good at scouting the various points of the map. He's kind of been missing out on opportunities throughout this series. We do still have just the Tier 1 on that barracks. It hasn't gone up to the Tier 2, and Tier 3 might be on the way relatively soon. If it's not, I don't know why Alvin Tay ended up going for the super fast nanotech mainframe. It doesn't look like he's constructing any super weapons just yet. He does have a lot of problems trying to get his units out of his base. But of course he can sell off the dojo, he can sell off the walls, and not be put too far back. That poor... Oh my word, that Twin Blade is going to be able to save itself. The engineer pops into that building, but it has been spotted, and Alvin Tay knows that it's coming. He knows that that's a possibility, and really he should split off just a couple of Imperial warriors over to that building, use their bonsai charge, clear out the engineer. Alvin Tay does not want to leave that opportunity open to his opponent. Now, Chris does have his MCV down here, which means he can start being annoying. He is going to try to drop a Tesla coil, but without any support, I don't know that it'll actually be going up. The Twin Blades can't really support when the Tengus are overhead, and Chris needs to start harassing this a little bit more intentionally instead of just leaving his hammer tanks sitting there doing nothing. Twin Blades are going to need some MiG support if they're going to hope to really do all that much, although as long as the Tengus are on the ground, then he can do whatever he wants. Chris can just roll over that army, or army, I say army, but it's actually really just 3 Tengus and a couple of Yari mini-subs. But the Yari mini-subs are going to try to get the block off on the MCV. I'm assuming that they're going to start shooting the MCV at some point, and they may even sacrifice themselves trying to take down the MCV as they're surfacing and trying to get in the way of the MCV. But another Twin Blade is coming over here to the left side. That engineer is potentially going to be getting locked down. That MCV will end up escaping onto the high ground, and of course the Tengus are going to have a little bit more trouble trying to kill it off. But no! Oh my word, Chris may actually be getting the Mecha Bay as it's Tier 3. He gets the Mecha Bay, completely locks down that production. Sell it, Chris, sell it, sell it, sell it. Get the cash, get the cash. Come on, buddy. No, he is going to be getting about half cash for it, but that completely shuts down the production of Alvin Tay. Alvin Tay has that 4 refinery economy, but he doesn't have a good place to sink the cash. Potentially going directly up to Shogun battleships is the best option, but reestablishing that Mecha Bay is also very good. I think he does need to get rid of some of this base, but he has a very tightly packed base. And unfortunately for Chris, he hasn't quite teched up to that Tier 3. Chris should have gone up here. He should have taken those extra refineries, and he should have just worked on getting out some artillery to harass and hit his opponent from afar. I'm not actually sure if there's another engineer inside of this Twin Blade. Maybe not as good of an option. Unfortunately, the engineer does get absolutely trashed there by that Wave Force artillery. And Chris's cutesy plays are not going to be enough because, as you can see, I mean, Alvin Tay... can that... Okay, the power plant can escape. I was like, wait, can that power plant even deploy anywhere without stuff moving? But no, he is able to get it out. Again, if Chris had any sort of good splash damage units or weapons, this would be an incredible spot to just punch right through. But unfortunately for Chris, he doesn't have really effective splash damage. He is indeed going to be adding on those bears. He knows that his opponent does have the infantry, and Alvante, his plan is just to sit back in his base and macro up as far as he can, get as many units as he can, and just work his way towards like an unbeatable death ball of units. Sea Wings, not a unit we see very often, but they can be extremely effective, and they're actually pretty good at killing off bullfrogs as long as you have reasonable numbers. Now, we do have a ridiculous number of hammer tanks. They may just utilize their actual main guns. Don't worry so much about the leech beams. Alvante is going to have to sink some money into these walls, but he is going to be buying himself a bit of time. He may be able to get some shots off with his Wave Force artillery. Chris not actually going to be staying in range long enough to get cleaned up by that Wave Force artillery. I'm not actually sure that there's any good angle of engagement for Chris. He may just be forced to go up to Tier 3, get out that artillery, and start working a different angle than trying to beat down the door with hammer tanks. Now again, expanding up to this top corner would not be a bad idea, but we've got the triple Tengu Harass coming in for Alvante, immediately focusing down on that ore collector, and this Twin Blade actually kind of popped out at the right time, considering the transform just happened. Unfortunately, it's getting rallied all the way to the other side of the map. Bullfrog's getting turned around. I don't know if they're... I mean, the Tengus are on the ground, so they'll clean up the bullfrogs without too much trouble. Harvester does go down. Unfortunately for Chris, he did lose yet another Harvester, which means the economic lead of Alvante is cemented that much further. Alvante really should be going up to Shogun battleships and be working on his composition in that way. Getting out that artillery is so important in breaking an opponent in a kind of weird situation like this. The mass hammer tank build is apparently what Chris is deploying in this particular game on Hard Lesson. Now the Twin Blades coming in, they will dart in, they get off the kill on one of the Wave Force artilleries. Now fortunately for Chris, Alvante didn't actually have all that much else around. Aha! That is the money sink of Alvante. His naval yard is now, he's got those 2 Shogun battleships out on the field. Tengus looking like they cleaned up a couple of Twin Blades there. Good move by Alvante. There's the Crusher Crane for Chris. He could decide to take these expansions up here if he really wanted to. But now that the Shogun battleships are out on the map, pretty much everything important that Chris has that's a structure can be targeted down and eliminated by these Shogun battleships. There's not a whole lot that is actually safe in Chris's arsenal, whether it's units or buildings. But hammer tanks are going to be moving in. He may actually have enough numbers to just crush through as long as he's utilizing his terror drones, and even his bears might be needed in this particular battle. Airfield gets eliminated. Of course, the Shogun battleship's going to be making quick work of these particular structures. And I mean, Alvante has that building up there, which is kind of interesting. He's also got that 4 refinery rocking. Hammer tanks pounding down the front door of Alvante. Chris, I think if he engages with just straight up hammer tanks, it's going to be a mistake. He needs those other units to support, unless these King Onis just get really bad engagements. But if the King Onis and the Tank Busters are able to focus down the hammer tanks, the Wave Force will also be a part of this game and a part of this upcoming battle. But Chris has an opportunity to absolutely smash through this army with just sheer numbers. He's going to need a good engagement, though, because if he lets his army get sectioned off and then kind of divided and conquered, he can see himself on the losing end of this engagement. But the MCV moving up to the 1 point on the map, which is basically completely safe from Shogun battleships, that top left corner. Although the Crusher Crane is going to probably get cleaned up here by the Shogun battleships, which is a little bit unfortunate for Chris, since he did drop the money on that Crusher Crane. I don't know, maybe the Shogun battleships aren't actually in range quite close enough to clean it up. Well, that's one way to deal with the infantry. I mean, Chris, with those Desolator bombers, the Desolator airstrike, doesn't actually need to clean up the infantry with the bears. Walking through the toxins, you know, not great. It will be eating through some of those point defense drones. And actually, now that Alvin Tay is out in the open there, Chris might just be able to sort of A-move over the army and do everything that he needs to do. Now, Chris does have the refinery up in that top left corner. He's got that established for him. So he's always got that kind of safety. Alvin Tay splitting off 2 King Onis, a Tank Buster, a Wave Force Artillery, and a Tengu. That's actually a lot of terror drones. Wow. That's like 9 or 10 terror drones. That is a surprising amount of terror drones. A surprising amount. Most people don't build that many terror drones. Shogun battleships wrecking the infrastructure, destroying the main base of Chris 880. And Chris, he's not feeling like engaging. He really doesn't want to engage. He's going to be going for the big A move. I'm not sure why his terror drones were so close to his opponent. He needs to be engaging with the hammer tanks. He could actually just walk over this army as long as he locks down the King Onis, and he's able to get on top of them and do the damage that he needs. One-Wave Force Artillery will be getting cleaned up without too much trouble. He needs to be splitting off the terror drones to lock down the other units of Alvin Tay, but Alvin Tay is going for the counterattack. The other point of contention on this map, cleaning up the main base, was 1 point, but the Crusher Crane still stands. Chris still has an opportunity, but he may have wasted it. If the Shogun battleships actually target down the buildings, then Chris may be forced out of this game sheerly by getting all of his buildings eliminated from this particular match. No, that War Factory still stands as well, which means Chris has bought himself some nice time out in the front where it doesn't belong as the Striker VX. It could get targeted down, but Chris is just letting this Wave Force Artillery have its way with his units. He's letting it pick off his hammer tanks one by one, and now he hardly has any terror... Well, no, he still actually has quite a few terror drones left. I just saw the one on the front lines there, but no, the rest of them are behind the army. Does he have the control, the APM, and the micro necessary to actually lock down more of these... Well, King Onis, he did have like 3 locked down for a moment there, but unfortunately, yeah, he's just sort of selecting all of his terror drones and telling them to attack 1 King Oni, which is not the, you know, optimal way to engage. It just takes so much micro to actually do very much more than that. And hammer tanks are going to be focusing down 1 King Oni. They may be forced to switch to their actual guns in a moment here, as the King Onis are going to get on top of the hammer tanks and actually be able to clean up some of them. Hammer tanks going to be pulling back. One of them has a Wave Force Artillery attachment. It's also heroic, but it is... Oh my gosh, is it actually going to be surviving? It's back in range of the King Onis. It gets eliminated, and 1 King Oni does go down. The terror drone gets eliminated as well. Chris trying to lock down King Onis while he falls back further and further. There's only the Crusher Crane and the War Factory for Chris. That's pretty much the only structures he's got left on the map. His army is growing smaller and smaller as Alvin Tay is punching through through the middle of his forces. The terror drones have fallen in numbers. The GG well played comes out from Chris, and Alvin Tay will be able to take this best of 3 2-1 in the New Year, New Maps 1v1 tournament. No super weapons in that game, no shenanigans like that. In this match, it was all about those big army engagements, delaying them for pretty much as long as possible, and then punching forward and taking weird engagements. Welcome to Battle Base Delta, and spawning in the top right corner from Team DVT, it is Alvin Tay. And in the bottom left side, the Blue Allies representing NACL, the Saltiest Clan, and Red Alert 3, it is Happy. He's playing them Allies. And he is going to be opening up Power Plant first, which doesn't always, but usually does indicate some sort of aircraft-based cheese. Now, potentially, he saw Alvin Tay's games versus Chris. He said, hey, you really like opening up Fast Third Refinery. Maybe I'll see if I can counter that a little bit. Maybe I'll see if I can go for some fast cryocopters. Now, Alvin Tay should be seeing the fact that there's no dogs, there's no PKs on the map, with his dojo. He should be a little bit suspicious as to exactly what is going on from his opponent. And his mind should start to make the connections that, oh, okay, he went no infantry. Well, what's one of the reasons that people go no infantry? Airfield. And of course, a lot of times that does end up meaning cryocopters very, very quickly. Not always. Maybe, not always. I don't know, does it ever not mean cryocopters quickly? Like, it feels like there's not really any fast airfield builds that don't rely on going cryocopters rather quickly. Alvante is identifying this, and of course, scouting with the burst drone, he's going to confirm it 100%, dropping down an extra power plant. Now, this can end up in some weird situations where it's like almost base tradey, where the allied player like ends up moving out to the water, and they've got an airfield out on the water, and they've got no refineries, and then the Empire player has like no production, and they've only got base defenses, and it's kind of like, can the allied player actually kill off these stuff from the Empire player? We've seen some weird openers, well, some weird games from these sort of openers. Happy immediately going to be changing the target of his cryocopter. He needs to make sure that he locks down that Defender VX core if he wants to stick around here for too much longer. He does change his mind and decide, well, I can just kill the Harvester and then leave. Easy enough. He may actually be able to find a sweet spot and freeze down the refinery from the opposite side of that particular Defender core. And again, these Defender cores, I mean, they can't defend absolutely every angle. Oh, this one is in a pretty good spot. Maybe the Cryocopter can get away with freezing the Harvester right there, or maybe he can get away with freezing the refinery from back here, something like that. But either way, it's going to be probably a pretty narrow window of opportunity for Happy to hit. But Alvante, he loves that 3 refinery opener, and he has not really been able to make very much use of it in this game. Now, ordinarily, the garages can be a very big selling point in, you know, any map, but with the heavy aircraft focus, of course, Happy is not really going to be needing them, and Alvante has to kind of think to himself, do I want to spend that extra 500 credits on the engineer right now when I opened a 3 refinery and my 3rd refinery isn't really doing anything? So, of course, the garages may not really be captured all that much in this particular game. Double oil derrick for Alvante is going to be quite nice, though. He needs that extra income as much as possible, considering, again, he dropped so much cash getting this 3 refinery up and going, and it really hasn't done anything. He probably got, like, what, 2 loads of ore out of this refinery? I mean, he almost got enough to make it worth it. Not quite, though. As he does sell off the refinery there, he is going heavy into the infantry, which is a pretty good choice. Now, if there's a cryocopter on the way, then it can, of course, lock down these infantry. But Happy went for the 3rd refinery relatively quickly. Could be looking to add on a 4th one pretty soon after. I mean, that's a pretty quick 4th refinery, but the refinery in the main base does go down, meaning it won't actually be that 4 refinery economy. This cryocopter, he really wants to freeze down that building. Alvante going to be reestablishing that 3rd refinery, getting himself back up to that 3 ref eco. Still no Mecha Bay out from him just yet. He's been more focused on surviving, and I love the heavy infantry focus. But if he goes too much heavier into these infantry, he's going to have a lot of dead weight in his army. And of course, by that I mean purely the fact that infantry can't swim, and aircraft are pretty good at dropping bombs on them. Happy does, of course, have his MCV over here. He's also got the power plant, which means there's a little bit of infrastructure for our Alvante to kill. But there's the naval yard on the low ground out on the water, which actually may be assaultable, may be attackable from the high ground there, so those infantry may not be entirely dead weight. The 4th refinery coming out from Alvante. Is this actually before the Mecha Bay? It is before the Mecha Bay. So we're actually seeing 4 refinery technically before Mecha Bay, but that's, of course, because of the infantry that Alvante went for and because of the opener of Happy. There's the infantry cleaning up the airfield, but without the tank busters here to support, they can't actually break down those walls. And those last 2 Imperial Warriors, they're showing up, and their friends are hoping that they're going to be tank busters, but they're not. They're just Imperial Warriors, and then Alvante is like, oh, huh. This attack maybe not working as well as I would have hoped. Smashing down one refinery is very important. Maintaining that 3-refinery double oil derrick advantage over Happy is very important for Alvin Tay, especially since his 4th refinery isn't going to be doing all that much. I mean, he like literally got 1 load of ore. He might actually be able to get a 2nd one, but that ore refinery is most likely going to be getting frozen relatively soon here, so... Alright, fine, he gets 2 loads of ore, but he's probably not going to be getting a 3rd. There we go, there's the freeze down. And the Assault Destroyer is on the way. Now we've got these extra little backdoor ramps for this particular expansion. One of the pretty numerous changes to Battle Base Delta in comparison to Battle Base Beta. Alvin Tay splitting off a naval yard on the right side, though it will be spotted by the aircraft most likely. And now we have that Tier 2 naval yard out on the field. Cryo Shot is going to be firing off on top of the power plant, which is a good choice there. And of course, with the double Apollo support, there's not a whole lot that these Tengus can do in such low numbers. Although, with point defense drones, I mean, if there would have been a couple more of them, then they would have been a little bit better off. And that Tengu does end up going down. The power plant gets sold off. Alvin Tay is restructuring his infantry army. Now, the Riptide did end up cleaning up the Imperial Warriors, but the tank busters are what you actually want to worry about. Another power plant is going to be getting focused down, and of course, if Alvin Tay loses power, then he really does lose any real opportunity to macro up an army. In this particular case, Happy just wants to defend. He wants to defend his little expansion over here where he's got a bit of infrastructure. He's starting to rebuild those infantry while he does his bit of damage. As long as he's able to keep Alvin Tay distracted for a couple of minutes and really press his advantage, then Happy will be all right. But if Alvin Tay is allowed to just run out of control, like by, you know, not losing this mecha bay, which would be pretty great for Alvin Tay. Unfortunately, he's not building any tank busters. And actually, Alvin Tay will end up losing. Oh, that Striker VX, the honorable discharge, not going to be enough to, you know, eliminate that Assault Destroyer. And nice bomb splitting there from Happy. The splash damage cleaning up a couple of those Imperial Warriors. At the same time, Yari mini-subs coming over here and getting in that harassment action by Happy. Happy has also cleaned up the mecha bay, which is so important in stopping that Empire from getting just a little bit out of control. Now, the oil derricks are still under the control of Alvin Tay, and shutting down this refinery is actually a pretty big move because, oh, he wasn't actually able to shut down this refinery, though. He did kill off the harvester, but that's not as big of a deal. Alvin Tay still has to deal with the aircraft. He still has to deal with that Allied Air Force. And he is going to be rebuilding his mecha bay, but as long as he can keep some sort of economic advantage, he can trade a little bit inefficiently. He can slowly but surely build back up to a powerful force, and with really only one refinery economy, Happy is in a little bit of trouble. He's going to have to make sure that he engages very carefully, that he's utilizing those cryocopters as much as possible, and that he's pretty much only taking, for sure, good engagements. The Assault Destroyer is going to be trying to find a proper angle of engagement. He may be able to sneak around this Defender VX score, and while he's... Oh, no, the Shrink Ray does wear off right there, but that Defender VX score is actually in the wrong fire mode, so it won't be dealing with that Assault Destroyer too much. There's actually a second mecha bay out on the way, which is one way to deal with these cryocopters. Another Defender Corps could be getting deployed here just for that anti-air capability, since there's really not an opportunity for Alvin Tay to get out a serious amount of Tengus. With 2 Apollos guarding this cryocopter, Alvin Tay is going to need a pretty solid number of Tengus. And actually, apparently that mecha bay never got cleaned up, which means his Vindicators, they're not doing their job. Happy is looking for an alternate way to win this game. Going for the power plants is a great way to make that happen. And I really like the fact that Happy cleaning up the oil derricks. He's also cleaning up that 3rd refinery. He locked down the 4th refinery on the high ground for Alvin Tay, and actually locking down that 1 instant generator was so important. There's the sell-off of... the sell-off of the mecha bay is enough to actually take these structures out of that low power mode. The bomb splitting is pretty nice, but it's not nice enough to avoid all of the damage from those from the Defender VX cores. And actually, Ooh, that Yari mini-sub just getting enough DPS out on that Assault Destroyer to clean it up. Completely wrecks that Assault Destroyer there. The Assault Destroyer has certainly done its job. Locking down that refinery was very important, and Alvante has now built himself a bit of a fortress. He's got power plants in a somewhat defensible location, and yeah, there are still openings for Happy to harass, but they're not quite... Oh my gosh, this refinery may get stuck between a rock and a hard place. Are the Apollos here to defend, or will the Tengu be able to clean up this Cryocopter? The Apollos are a little bit out of position here, and actually that Tengu is repositioning in a favorable way for the Apollos. They are able to engage one of the Tengus quite easily. The second one goes down as well, and no, that refinery rather, actually does indeed unfreeze. Can he freeze it? Yes, he freezes it. Happy may be able to just take out that potential eco of his opponent. At the same time, that naval yard is getting targeted down. The Tengus get eliminated once more, and I don't know if that Cryocopter actually managed to survive. There is going to be the spy inside of the ore refinery, and the javelins for the target down. Eliminating the eco for Happy is so important, since Alvante has been ahead of that eco in pretty much the entire game. He has been ahead of Happy in that way. But Alvante has been able to rebuild that Harvester quite a while ago. Could go ahead and expand out to this location, kind of retake his main base if he really wanted to. We'll see if he decides to do that or not. But with more than enough power plants, Alvante, I mean, his problem is not power. His problem is actually producing units, because he hasn't been able to get up to that any sort of healthy number of Tengus. Pretty much at any point of this game, he hasn't really had enough Tengus to straight up contest the air superiority of his opponent. And Happy, I mean, we saw how Alvante engaged poorly with those Tengus just a little while ago, allowing Happy to trash through those Tengus, move right in with his, well, I mean, that's the exact opposite of bomb splitting, but he doesn't really need to split bombs super well. Oh my word! So much DPS almost cleaning up that Vindicator, but it's not quite enough from those Defender cores. Oh, please don't donate away Javelin Troopers. And Alvante, he had that economic advantage earlier in the game, but he hasn't been able to do all that much with it. He's been spending most of his money rebuilding refineries, or trying to rebuild refineries, and it's just not working. And again, the aircraft from Happy have been so efficient, so cost-efficient at cleaning up Alvante. And unfortunately for Alvante, he's never been able to really get a solid engagement on Happy. Happy, in almost every engagement, has been engaging his way, and well, those Javelin Troopers may be doomed to die. They might actually be able to clean up one of these Tengus, but nope, the DPS is a little bit too strong there from the Harvester and the Tengus. They will all survive. Peacekeeper is going to be running right past this building. Hey, might as well mix in a couple of Peacekeepers here for Happy, just to help him deal with Alvante. But really, the power of Happy, as pretty much always with allies, is in that Air Force. That fast airfield early on in the game has been what's led him to a pretty strong position versus Alvante. And as long as he can keep Alvante cramped up and Alvante on the defensive, then Happy is free to do whatever he wishes. For example, going for that war factory, getting up that armor facility, and being able to potentially even tech up to tier 3 eventually, although he's not quite there just yet. Free harass. Free harass for Happy. And because, again, 2 Tengus is not enough to engage those 2 Apollos, although with point defense drones they'll do a considerably better job, it's still going to be not a favorable engagement for Happy. No, it's going to be a favorable engagement for Happy. It's not going to be a favorable engagement for Alvante. And of course, Happy on top of that is now adding on the IFVs, mixing them into his army. And it's like every spot in his base, in Alvante's base, is open to Happy. There are so few angles that are actually well covered by those Defender VXs. Cryocopter going to be absorbing a couple of shots there. The Apollos taking some damage from the Strikers. And actually, maybe this Cryocopter can finally get eliminated, but that's not enough. It's just not quite enough for Alvante to really snowball that one kind of victory. Although, wait, this is a Tank Buster surprise. It is indeed. He's actually been able to grab that building. If he can lock down a lot of the infrastructure of Alvin-Tay, or excuse me, of Happy, then Alvin-Tay could actually start to make the comeback real. There's the Cryoblast going to be firing off, locking down a refinery, locking down a power plant as well, forcing the sell-off though. But no, the Tank Busters, they can't really chain anything in this engagement. They aren't going to be able to progress too much further. They just get a refinery, and that, again, is, I don't think, enough to really stop Happy. Alvin-Tay has almost nothing in this game. He has got so little. He's been playing defensive pretty much the entire game. He had his offensive streak earlier on. He tried it once with infantry, again with the Yari mini-subs, but after that, it's pretty much always been on the defensive for Alvin-Tay. The aggressor, the one with his foot on the pedal, is Happy. And now he's got artillery. And artillery is that final checkbox. It's almost that checkmate scenario, where really the only way to counter artillery is either going to be some good aircraft control or artillery of your own, and when you're that far behind, you can't contend the Allied Air Force, you can't contend their artillery either, and Alvin-Tay will drop game number 1 in this best of 3. Happy, showing us that aircraft first opener, and then rolling it into a victory on Battle Base Delta. He's like, 2 garages? I don't care. Cryo Rush still works great. Welcome to Hard Lesson, our red empire in the bottom left corner. From Team Diversity is Alvin-Tay. And the man who is up 1-0 in this best of 5, our blue allies from Team NACL, it is Happy. So Alvin-Tay, he's trailing that 1 single point, but is he going to be able to make the comeback? I think step 1 is don't go fast 3 refinery immediately. Like, there are other builds that you can do. Now, for the most part, Alvin-Tay has been going, I think, just double dojo. He hasn't been going the triple dojo, and the MCV move may be indicating that he's doing something a bit more standard. Now, we're seeing a bit more of a standard opener as well from Happy. It looks like he's going to be going for that naval yard as well. He's got his dog up in the north, looking to just get that little bit of vision, that little bit of scouting, and, of course, lock down any engineers that are foolish enough to run all the way to the oil derrick. But Alvin-Tay is going to be packing along that extra dojo, which means he'll be able to protect his engineer as it pops on out. And that dog is not going to be able to do all that much. MCV gets redeployed. Alvin-Tay taking a far different position on this map than we've seen him take on this map previously versus Chris. But on those other games, Chris did not do anything to punish the fast 3 refinery openers. And it is going to be right into the Riptide Javelin combo, which can be such a powerful combination. Wow, that dog may actually be getting the kill. That dog may have already gotten the kill. That engineer may actually be dead. That engineer is dead! Whoa, as we resume from that pretty massive lag spike. I don't know where that came from, but that engineer is totally trash. Burst drone gets destroyed as well, and Happy with pretty much an immaculate opening here. Oh my word, if he gets the... Oh, he got an Imperial Warrior as well. Killing the Imperial Warrior by itself, not too big of a deal. The engineer and the Imperial Warrior, that's when that dog is just so good. On top of that, Javelin troopers are heading up to the north. They may end up going for the kill on that oil derrick, although it may not even be worth their time. They can move on right past it and still be relatively safe when they're going for whatever the next, target of their choice is. Happy may decide to go for infrastructure. Killing off the power plant wouldn't be a terrible idea. It's not the, the most valuable thing ever either, but it's not a bad idea. Double Riptide, one of them probably doesn't have very much in it, and the airfield is the follow-up for Happy. He has got his MCV potentially on the move. It seems a lot of MCVs are getting stuck on that spot. I wonder if that's a bit of a map terrain bug. There's a bit of a problem with that. And hopefully this lag ends up cleaning up a little bit here. But these Riptides are moving in. The Javelin Troopers getting some nice shots off on that. Well, that one dojo, they almost kill it off, and then they let the Riptide actually take away all of the glory. And actually, it's going to be an engineer right into that oil derrick. So a capture there by Happy. Of course, forcing Alvente to clean up that oil derrick if he doesn't want it to be utilized by his opponent. Riptide's heading on to the low ground, and Happy is most likely going to be looking for a refinery kill. He may settle for, you know, killing off a power plant or two, something like that, but an extra dojo gets deployed for Alvente. He wants to recapture that oil derrick. He wants to make sure that Happy is not able to get the cash back for that structure. And of course, it takes just over a minute to earn back the 500 credits of the engineer. That MCV, man, I think that's a problem with this map. Vindicators coming out, of course, most likely going the bombing runs on those infantry. Oil derrick gets captured for Alvente, and he continues to move his way up to that kind of top left corner. He never actually went for that mecha bay. He's been delaying that pretty significantly. Now, Tank Buster's getting cleaned up by those Vindicators. Very annoying for Alvente to deal with. Alvente splitting off an extra dojo, most likely for the oil derrick of his opponent. May end up getting targeted down by the Javelin Troopers. If Alvente is paying attention, which unfortunately he deploys it there, which means he won't be able to get any miracle crushes on the Javelin Troopers, which does occasionally happen, although Happy is probably good enough to where he's not going to let those miracle crushes really happen. More infantry getting cleaned up in these continuous bombing runs. When there's no Tengus to oppose them, they are ridiculously strong for Happy. Ooh. One Riptide ends up going down. Now, Alvente is going for the super delayed third refinery. Yeah, Happy is a little bit unfortunate in his MCV, seeming to get stuck. Unfortunately, he's not quite able to get that third refinery up and running as quickly as he would like. And that's the sort of thing that you tell your MCV to move, and then you just kind of click away, assuming that it's actually going to do what you told it to do. There's a sell-off of the power plant. And Alvente may be seeing himself in a low power mode, which, I mean, not that he has a ton of production going on anyways, but that would be super annoying if he had to rebuild those power plants. And on top of that, Happy is going to be going for the Harvester kill. May be able to lock down this Harvester, but we'll see if Alvente gets some incredible crushes. No, he doesn't get any incredible crushes at all, as Happy does actually lose three of the Javelin Troopers there to that Harvester. A little bit unfortunate for Happy, but he is able to bring in his Vindicators. The Apollo is standing guard up in the north. Will be going for the target down of that Tengu. And oh, the Tengu, will it actually get any? No, he doesn't actually get any of the Vindicators. Another power plant does go down. Happy in the south going to be cleaning up potentially both of these Imperial Warriors. They're low on HP, which means they won't actually get the kill on that Riptide. The laser lock on the last instant generator is going to be just shutting down any hopes of Alvente for really locking down safety, for getting his production up and running. Alvente really has no hopes of that. He just cannot macro if he's got no power. He may actually be losing this refinery as well, although the Tengu is coming to the rescue. I'm not sure if escaping out onto the water will actually work here. We'll see if the Vindicators end up coming to the rescue of that Riptide. It looks like for now the answer is no, but as long as the Tengu doesn't catch up to the Riptide, as long as the Riptide keeps moving and stays out of range, then the Tengu will be not very useful. Locking down the power plants is so annoying of Happy. But it's that like great little move. You know, power plants aren't normally the value structures that you go for ordinarily, but when you can get them as easily as Happy is, you're just continuing to put your opponent further and further and further behind. It's like 2,400 credits, maybe 3,200 credits that have been spent on power plants instead of spending it on army units for Alvente. He's just been spending so much money rebuilding power plants, and in the meantime, all of his structures are unfortunately getting targeted down there. I mean, he can't produce things at a normal rate. Everything is doubled, and Alvente, unfortunately, is going to be dropping from this game. He does have apparently some connection problems with Happy. I don't think this is an intentional DC. And technically, Alvin Tay does still have comeback potential. I mean, this game is not quite decided, although it is heavily weighted in Happy's favor. And considering how Game 1 went, Happy is most likely going to be able to lock this game down. But, I mean, technically, it is not decided, which makes it kind of an awkward call. Because given the situation, Happy probably would have won this game. But you can't say for sure. And Happy asks, is anyone here? Unfortunately, because I'm an observer, I can't actually answer him in the in-game chat. Welcome to Temple Prime Tournament Edition, and spawning on the left side as the Orange Empire player, we have from Team Diversity, it is Alvin Tay. And on the right side as the Blue Allies from Team NACL, leading 2-0 into this best of 5, it is Happy. Alvin Tay versus Happy. Maybe a little bit one-sided for the Happy player. But Alvin Tay does have the opportunity to take some games back off of Happy. Double dojo with a third and a fourth dojo for the start. 2 refineries, and of course, we've got that land expansion for both players for a potential third base. We'll have to see if they take it. The center of this map is much more open, and Happy is just like, I'm not having any shenanigans with this building. I'm going to take it out. I don't want to have to deal with it. I just want it to die. So he's going to clean it up. He's going to take it out there. Huh. That building just completely disappears. It does not break and shatter and destroy like the other buildings. But it's going to be fast naval yard for Happy, which is pretty standard. Lots of allies love to do that. Lots of infantry pumping out for Alvin Tay. He's been able to grab both of the oil derricks. And Happy, he's got a dog. He's got a dog patrolling that barracks. He's got a dog killing that Imperial warrior. And the dojo most likely will be cleaning up that dog like so. Both of the oil derricks most likely will be grabbed by Alvin Tay. He's got enough Imperial warriors to pretty much guarantee that, but the engineers are out on the map for Happy. He's got 2 of them, which means he can, of course, recapture that oil derrick if he so chooses. C9 is a giant noob because he doesn't participate in tournaments, and all he does is talk. He doesn't have any walk to follow it up with. Boom! Challenge, C9. Come back to Red Alert 3, play more games. Stop playing CSGO. No one likes that game anyways, despite the fact that it's well supported and way more popular. Shh. Ignore those facts. Come back to Red Alert 3. At any rate, Happy. He's got the airfield. He sold off his naval yard, which is, again, pretty standard. And it looks like he may actually be going for the water expansion up in the north. Javelin Troopers going to be targeting down this refinery. They break through the wall, then laser lock the actual refinery. And Alvin Tay is, of course, going to be rebuilding those walls as quickly as he possibly can. But with this many Javelin Troopers, you don't need very long of a laser lock to actually be able to clean up a refinery. As you can see, 1 set of laser locks was enough to clean up most of the refinery's HP, and then the second set of laser locks cleaned up the rest of the refinery. And that's the economic advantage. Please don't throw away these Javelin Troopers, Happy, that the allied player may need to roll it forward into a powerful victory. But we'll see, because the game is not over yet. It's not over until it's over. Those tank busters getting cleaned up, but there's more infantry coming in for Alvin Tay. He's continuing to pump tank busters and Imperial warriors. He is having to rebuild the refinery. So the kind of story of last game was rebuilding power plants. The story of this game is rebuilding refineries, and that's really unfortunate for Alvin Tay, but he's going to be able to clean up the aircraft. He's going to be able to clean up the airfield. It looks like nope, none of the aircraft actually go down with the airfield. Nice control by Happy there. Conyard out on the water means it's safe from the infantry, but will Alvin Tay be going for the harassment out there? Now, effectively, Alvin Tay has gone pretty quick 3 refineries, but he's only got that 2 refinery economy, which is a little bit unfortunate for him, but he's hitting back, and this is exactly what you need to see from him, is he's using these tank busters, he's using these infantry to get back at his opponent, to strike back and start to take away some of that advantage that his opponent has. Happy is going to be down to pretty much just 1 refinery economy, and Alvin Tay, he got the cash back on both of those oil derricks. He's going to be in an all-right position economically. He's going to be sitting on 2 refinery. He's going to be getting himself up to a naval yard. Now, of course, as we saw in game number 1, sometimes your eco doesn't matter if you can't deal with the units of your opponent. So, if Alvin Tay never has the opportunity to deal with the aircraft of Happy, and Happy ends up going, you know, cryocopter with Vindicator support, something like that, then we could see something similar to game number 1, where Alvin Tay just cannot deal with the units of his opponent, even though he technically has a better economy. Now, there is an airfield out on the field. I don't know if Happy actually has enough income to build a refinery, but he has kind of diversified his funds. He's split himself up to 2 different locations, and he's got an oil derrick, which is not a great situation to be in, but it's not a terrible situation to be in either. It's better than it could be. There's the sell-off of that naval yard. Happy. Looks like he's not actually going to be deploying a refinery anywhere just yet. He's going to be focusing on surviving for now. And this has bought Alvin Tay a lot of time. 3 refinery economy. He's even going to be taking back the oil derrick of his opponent, which is a great idea. Stopping any sort of eco from his opponent being utilized by his opponent is very important for Alvin Tay. He's also, of course, going to be able to produce lots of Yari mini-subs. He may actually already have some out on the map. At least 1 is out. Oh, that dojo getting cleaned up. The plays by Happy. He's unfortunately for Alvin Tay, Happy is going to be shutting down that dojo, not allowing it to do anything. The great placement of that Yari mini-sub right where that refinery wants to be. I don't even know if the refinery is going to be able to be deployed. I mean, well, it can't be deployed down there anymore. Command hub had to be sold off. I'm assuming he did that for the cash back, but now he has to try to rebuild that power plant as well. And Happy, he can't quite hit that Yari mini-sub until it surfaces. Alvin Tay is putting himself in an incredible position in this game. It will be a game of throws if he allows Happy to work his way back in this game. 4 refinery, 1 oil empire versus literally 1 oil allies. Never a good situation to be in. The MCV gets tagged by the burst drone, trying to keep an eye on it. Now, fortunately for Happy, he has been able to get up that power plant, and he does still have powerful potential of a base turret push, but that's going to take him like an hour and a half to actually enact, and it would give Alvin Tay about 10,000 opportunities to react to it. So, he should sing some Rammstein, says C9Q9MD. Interesting point, in university, we actually did a lab, and I sang Rammstein. I don't know German, but I sang Du hast by Rammstein, and it was great. I had a lot of fun. If you had the context, you might actually understand why I was singing Rammstein at university, but I think it's better with no context. Like, if you don't actually understand why it makes sense for that to be happening, it's just that much better. Cryoshot comes down, going to be completely missing those infantry. And the Vindicators, of course, can clean up the majority of the infantry, but they have to be careful about dropping their bombs. There's not an airfield out here. Actually, they may not even have any bombs. As Happy drops the smiley face, that's basically a GG. And Alvin Tay, in a smashing victory, takes the score back 2-1. Now, it's still going to be match point for Happy. He's still at that advantage, but Alvin Tay is showing us he has got what it takes to bring it back. And that will do it for game number 3. Game number 4 is coming right up. Welcome to Island Arena, spawning in the top right side, of this map from Team NACL. It is Happy. And on the left side, as the Cyan Empire from DVT Diversity, it is Alvin Tay. Bringing things back 2-1 against Happy. I guess 1-2 against Happy. But Alvin Tay doing what he can to conquer the allied menace of Happy. Happy with a strong 2-0 start, but we've seen Happy open up 2-0 in best of fives before. And then somehow he falters, he's not able to finish things out, and he just loses the series. Now those were games versus VoDs, and Alvin Tay I don't think is quite on the same level as VoDs, but we will see what kind of action Alvin Tay can bring, because Happy, if he can finish things up, then this may be the last game of this series. But Alvin Tay has shown his strength. He has shown that he's got the power to take out Happy. And will he actually be able to finish things out, though? Because, of course, he has to win 2 games in a row, and he can't let Happy get any wins. He can't make any really major mistakes. The garage will be an important part of this particular game. It's into IFVs. And IFVs are one of those units that can create some very incredibly powerful early game combos. Alvin Tay is not quite going to be grabbing his own garage at this point, but he is going lots of infantry. He's actually going double dojo infantry, and he's packing along a 3rd dojo as well. Now his burst drone is going to be spotting exactly what Happy is doing, so Alvin Tay will have about as much time to respond to this as he possibly can. And it looks like there is a Javelin Trooper inside of that IFV, but Happy is just continuing to pump out more IFVs. We'll see if he's actually able to do anything with them. Now the micro is going to be very important here for Happy, because he does not want to lose this Javelin Trooper to that Harvester. It can get focused down relatively quickly. In the middle of the map, though, the IFV needs to make sure that it's pulling back the garage. Going to be very important in the repairs there. And, of course, Happy, as long as he's able to keep his vehicles alive, they will always, always repair until that garage goes down. Alvin Tay does not have the same advantage, and one refinery is going to be going down. It looks like, no, the Javelin Trooper does reposition. He's not going to be able to get the kill there, and Happy, unfortunately, is not going to be able to finish off that refinery. He does still have to deal with this aggression at his front. Now, with perfect control, with 3 IFVs, he could indeed stand a very long time against these infantry, but he needs to make sure that he's backing up the appropriate IFV at the appropriate time. He's doing a great job of focusing down the tank busters. Almost every single one of the tank busters has been eliminated. The MCV is moving forward, and no, it will actually end up getting captured, no, crushing 2 of those IFVs, as both of them do get locked down there. A great move and a critical mistake for Alvin Tay and Happy, respectively. Alvin Tay able to lock down 2 of those IFVs is very important. He was able to save his refinery, and Happy is fumbling. He is not producing the same crisp, clear, strong play that we saw him lead to victories in previous games and series. Now, in this case, he is microing considerably better, keeping alive all of his IFVs, but he needs to make sure that he's always sending forward the high health one, that it's the one absorbing the damage. And oh no, he's moving in to pick off another tank buster. He doesn't quite get the tank buster, but he's clearing out the Imperial Warriors, and he's not losing a single IFV for his trouble. Great control here by Happy, utilizing those IFVs to their absolute maximum potential. And of course, units do drive a little bit slower backwards, which is why you're seeing Happy actually turn his units around and run away rather than just reverse move all the time. His entire purpose right now is to control around the MCV of his opponent. That's just a power plant out at that 3rd refinery location, and now that all of the infantry have been cleaned up by Happy, he's got a serious opportunity to end this game relatively soon, but the MCV is unpacking. Is it going to be the insta-sell for the capture on this armor facility? He could be going for an additional dojo. There's the sell-off for 0 credits. One of the most useless sell-offs pretty much ever, as unfortunately for Alvin Tay, he wasn't really able to get anything of value from that structure. The dog is coming in. Happy wants to know exactly what his opponent is doing, and Alvin Tay, he's going for the Defender cores, but they take so much damage from the IFV PK combo. Wow, those cores just get absolutely annihilated. The MCV is brought off the line, but the stutter step is going to be so easy for Happy to pull off. There's the bonsai charge of the Imperial Warrior for Alvente. The dog is moving in on the right side. And the MCV from Happy has been pretty much unopposed in this game. He's taken a third refinery. He's taken an airfield as well. And even the dog wasn't able to do anything for Happy, but that doesn't really matter. The Defender VX core actually does get established, but with most likely Vindicators on the way, no, nothing is on the way for Happy. Maybe he doesn't feel that he needs it. But, actually, wait a second. Nope, that's just power plant. It's not even a naval yard for any sort of, like, Riptide action. Maybe if he would have moved it into range of that MCV, then it would have been tier 2, and then potentially, you know, if Happy ended up purchasing tier 2, then the naval yard could have been used for assault destroyers, but no, those options are not on the table, and crushing through those walls will allow this Defender core to focus down that refinery. Another dojo is getting produced, and unfortunately for Happy, he hasn't quickly or efficiently cleaned up the main base, or cleaned out his main base, which means he has to deal with that Defender core. But Happy has cleaned out the infantry of the main base of his opponent, which means he can start to go to town on those harvesters. He can start to clean up the harvesters, and he will be focusing one down. He does split away from it, making sure that honorable discharge is not going to be a factor. But of course, with the PKs inside of those IFVs can be ejected, and the IFVs can deal with the walls without too much trouble. There's the bombs coming out for Happy. He is going to be losing one refinery, and that turret has paid for itself. But at the same time, the walls are now going down. The PKs are coming inside, and they're going to be able to do the damage to the harvesters of Alvente. Alvente, please do not let this harvester crush your guys, please. He has not... Oh, no, he loses one tank buster to it, but that's not as big of a deal as losing all of those tank busters. At the same time, tank busters cannot swim. They cannot get out to the kind of natural expansion of Happy and lock it down. Happy, on the other hand, going for the Chronosphere. He's going to be looking to Rectorino. Alvente, as we saw Chris 880 get wrecked by the Chronosphere of Vindies in a previous event. And that video was a super ton fun to make. Happy playing this out very well. Good control is what led him to be in this position. He did not trade away too many of those IFVs. Yeah, he gave a couple of them away to some poor control to an MCV, but he kept pretty much everything else alive, and he's been able to get up to that Proton Collider. Alvente never knows when to GG out. And he's like, hey man, I've got an MCV. I have an MCV. You know what I can do with an MCV? I mean, not that much. Maybe if you had an oil derrick, things would be looking a little bit better. But looking a little bit better doesn't mean a lot in this scenario. Alvente has been defeated. The 3-1 is going to be the score for NACL's Happy, and he is going to advance on to the finals of the New Year, New Maps tournament. Alvente was not able to deal with that IFV PK combo with the Garage. It's so powerful. How many of those IFVs should have gone down that didn't go down? The tank busters were in reasonable numbers, but the micro and the repairs were too strong from Happy, and Alvente falls 1-3 out of the semifinals and out of this single elimination tournament. Welcome to Pure Oneage game number 1 of this finals best of 7. Spawning in the top right corner as the Orange Soviets, it is Happy from Team NACL. And in the south side, the Blue Allies making the unreal comeback in the semifinals. It is PK from YZZD, a Chinese Red Alert 3 clan that often is not seen in the regular game. They do have their own server that they play on, and normally they don't play with the Europeans just because of lag and other connection issues, and a lot of the Chinese players unfortunately cannot get very stable connections to the CNC online servers. Hopefully that will improve in the future, but we will have to see. At any rate, Soviets versus Allies. Now, I don't know if Happy is going to be sticking with Soviets throughout the entirety of this Best of 7 series, but he's certainly doing it at the beginning. There's the laser lock of that structure. PK is trying to lock it down. He's not quite going to be able to get it all the way, but it's an infantry spam, as you can see, leading its way across the map, and PK does not have nearly enough units to deal with this. He hasn't gone Naval Yard, and unfortunately, he won't be able to deal with these incredible amounts of dogs just yet, or bears just yet. He is producing a couple of dogs to help lock down the infantry of his opponent, and it looks like one dog is going to be coming out ahead in this particular engagement. The Peacekeepers are finally getting some clearance to clear away the infantry of their opponent, but the conscripts are in pretty healthy numbers, and the bears have just now been finally cleaned up. The dogs are gone as well for PK, and it looks like he does have a couple of dogs up here, which may end up being brought down into the battle, but for now, it's just the conscripts versus whatever the heck PK can get. He's bought enough time to get out a seaport. He's got his first Riptide, and that is his safety unit. Because versus that many conscripts, he can take quite a few of them with him before the Riptide actually goes down. Now we do have a Terror Drone out on the field. Nice focus firing from PK, or from Happy, to clean up that Javelin Trooper from PK, because of course PK wants to clean up this civilian structure and stop that little bastion of strength from existing for YZZD, for Happy. So PK is going up to clear out that building. He's been able to push back Happy, and Happy, he went right up into that tier 2. He's heading on his way to his 3rd refinery. We'll see if he's able to get that underway, but Happy even going to be putting out a lot of DPS on this airfield, and of course there's no efficient way for PK to clear out this building. He's going to have to either sacrifice way more Peacekeepers than he would like to, or he may end up losing this airfield. His MCV is unfortunately on the move, and he wasn't able to throw down any walls to really save him from taking that much damage on that airfield. Hammer Tank's now getting rallied down for Happy, and Happy, I mean, he had a pretty good opener. Let's see if he can kind of continue the momentum as the Riptide goes down. One of the Vindicators is gone as well, and PK is just having a very rough time actually getting himself off the ground in this game. Goodbye airfield, as even the Vindicator comes off the line, but he doesn't get to drop his bombs. He doesn't get to do any real damage, and unfortunately for PK, he has just taken so much damage in the early part of this game, and Happy is not letting up. He's establishing a 3rd refinery. He's continuing to pressure with his conscripts in the south. He's got his Hammer Tank somewhere around here for a little bit of extra DPS if he needs it. And the airfield may be forced to be rebuilt somewhere else. No, it's going to be into the boot camp. He's going to try to get out some Javelin Troopers. He's going to try to get out something to deal with his opponent's structures and forces, but the conscripts can easily clear out these structures without any trouble at all, and even this power plant is going to be in range of Happy's units on the ground. Now PK is going to be establishing his kind of refinery, what would be his natural expansion, but has actually kind of turned into his only bastion of hope other than the oil derrick on this map. Peacekeeper is probably going to be able to get some nice shots off, but the focus from the conscripts is good enough. There's 3 fully heroic conscripts in this little group. 3 bullfrogs to back them up just in case they're needed. Now the dogs absolutely tearing through a couple of those conscripts, and unfortunately for PK, he just doesn't have the forces to contend Happy, and Happy locks down PK in very short fashion. That game was a little bit brutal from Happy there, man. He just pushed in with those infantry, and PK didn't have the forces to deal with it. He didn't have the PKs to deal with it, but let's see if he's able to make the action happen. Welcome to Hard Lesson. Spawning on the left side, down 0-1 in this best of 7, the Green Allies from YZZD, the Chinese player PK. And on the right side, that double barracks Soviets. He's blue. He is not blue because he is NACL's Happy. Double racks opener. Not the craziest thing for Soviets to do. I feel like GBH Michael likes his double racks openers. versus allies. Now, of course, you can get some really cost-effective engagements against buildings, but in this particular game, it looks like PK is going to be the one opening up more efficient with his early infantry. These conscripts will be able to focus down the dogs if they're not careful, and the dogs do get pulled back a little bit too late for PK there. Once you get like 2 conscripts in a group, they just can deal with the dogs very easily, and the dogs have a tough time actually getting close enough to get off any barks. You really need the PKs to beef out your army. Now, YZZD PK is also known as YZZD Pika in this particular game. He's going for that double ref opener after the first racks, and he could very well be looking to add on a naval yard next. Getting up some riptides would not be a bad idea, especially when he sees the large amount of infantry. Now, Hard Lesson, I do believe, gives you a fair bit more distance between the spawns than something like Pure Oneage, which has a much closer spawn. It feels like, I don't know if it actually is, but it feels like they're much, much closer. Conscripts and bears are going to take a little bit longer to cross the map. And the PK is starting to form up. Can they actually get the shots off that they need? Yes, they are so far. The bears are getting locked down. The PK is moving forward. And the conscripts are starting to get taken out. But there's so many conscripts in this army. As you can see, the splash damage is doing quite the number on these conscripts. But the numbers are just overwhelming for Happy. PK, on the other hand, following it up with an airfield. Going to be relying on the Vindicators and the bomb splits to really make his engagements efficient. The dog is coming in. We'll see if he's able to do any real damage with it, because sometimes, again, the dogs just get shot up so incredibly quickly that it doesn't even matter. 2 conscripts go down. Not terrible. Maybe not the best ever, but not terrible either. That building getting garrisoned by Happy. He has gone tier 2. He has gone airfield, and that MCV, man, that is a troublemaker of a spot, unfortunately, on this map. That spot is just all trouble. The first Twin Blade is out. The Vindicators are going to be getting a pretty good idea of what Happy is doing. And he's going to see the super reactor in the airfield, but he's going to see no war factory. And so PK is going to know exactly what his opponent has done in this game. The MiG is going to be giving chase to the Vindicators as well. They're going to have to go ahead and get on out of there. And one Vindicator does go down. The other one may be able to escape. It's going to be close either way. The Twin Blade's starting to get a little bit of damage out, and the conscripts pushing in, trying to do what they can to clean up the airfield, but it's not the same story as last game. PK holds the defense, and even as Harvester does survive, that multi-gunner turret is strong enough to push away that Twin Blade, maybe even to clean it up. And the barracks not being utilized all that much, but PK has enough units out to deal with the infantry threat of his opponent. The roar does happen, locks down one of the Peacekeepers, but there's no DPS there for Happy to clean up that Peacekeeper. Third refinery getting established for Happy. It's a little bit late there for in comparison to PK. He's got his third refinery up much more quickly. Looks like an Apollo got absolutely destroyed by those MiGs. And we may need to see, well, some Javelin Troopers, which are already out for PK. Of course, those are going to be great in dealing with the MiGs. It'll help his Apollos to actually engage more efficiently versus the superior number of MiGs. Single Twin Blade out for Happy, but I'm more interested in what his follow-up is. Now, he is going Racks for the follow-up. A War Factory also wouldn't be a bad idea, but he does have that Super Reactor, which means if he's feeling a little bit crazy, he can go for some Tesla Troopers, which isn't the worst idea ever, but generally Tesla Troopers are considered a bit too expensive to really be efficient. And unfortunately for YCZD PK, he's not quite engaging properly with his Apollos. He's trying to... He's trying to pick fights that he unfortunately can't win, but he does draw that MiG into an area of attack for that Javelin Trooper inside of that structure. He's able to clean up the MiG that way, so a good move there by PK. PK does need to worry about the Harvester harass, though. He does indeed have this armor facility out on the field, so he is going to be able to get out some IFVs to help him deal with the aircraft of his opponent. The Bears are on the front line, which means the infantry are going to have to be careful about where they move. And that Apollo could be getting taken out. No, it does barely end up surviving there. The Harvester gets pulled off the line, but now there is the IFV to help PK hold the line against Well, the oppressing Soviet, which is moving closer and closer. The MCV is going for extreme proximity. Whatever structure he decides to throw down, it is going to be a proxy war factory. One twin blade does go down, but the flak troopers clean up one of the Apollos. No problemo there. And now PK has to deal with the infantry directly on his front door. And if he doesn't focus down this Tesla coil, he's not going to be able to really stop this attack from doing serious damage. At the very least, the Vindicator does go down, but at the very least, this entire expansion is pretty much going to be forfeit. There goes the Peacekeepers. They mostly do get locked down by the Bear, but they're trying to deal with this Tesla coil, which really the Vindicators need to be dropping bombs on, but unfortunately for PK, he can't get a good angle of engagement. Now the Tesla coil is up, but it's taken a lot of damage, and the Terror Drone starting to get that stasis ray active on one of these IFVs, so the flak troopers can come into close range and deal with it. The Tesla coil does still stand. There's no Vindicators on their deck. They're instead going to be completely dead, as it looks like there's none in the sky either. Somehow the Tesla coil survives. The hammer tank is here for reinforcements, and somehow Happy has just bamboozled his way into a fantastic position in this game. He's pushing back the important infrastructure of his opponent, and the MCV is even in a kind of exposed position to these hammer tanks. If they decide to engage with their leech beams, they can outrange the turret, or they could start working on that MCV. Now, one MiG does go down, which means the Vindicators might be able to get some work done, but even with this one Apollo, they're going to still have to deal with the flak troopers. Now, as it turns out, one flak trooper does go down there, and I'm assuming he was trying to splash damage down both of those tanks, but it didn't quite work out. Both of them do survive, which means it's kind of the worst of both worlds, because he didn't actually kill either one of the tanks. There comes the satellites as they're dropping down on this airfield. It should be enough DPS to finish it off, but it's going to be close either way. The hammer tanks will be able to finish it off if they end up surviving, but the cryo shot is coming down. The airfield gets eliminated, and is a Peacekeeper or an IFV going to survive to be able to make use of this freezing ability? Well, it doesn't even matter, because Happy is controlling well enough to avoid that freeze ray with his units, and Happy may be going up 2-0 in this series. PK has only the strength of his multi-gunner turrets to guide him along in this game. There's a fourth refinery from Happy, adding insult to injury, just saying, hey, yeah, I am right on your doorstep. I am stealing what should be your natural expansion, and I'm going to be utilizing it for myself. The War Factory is still here, pumping out hammer tanks. The Tesla coil makes this position extremely hard for PK to actually start pushing into. And even the multi-gunner turret, which would be normally a very powerful multi-gunner turret push move, is not going to be doing all that much because of the building blocks, because of the walls. And there's another building block with the barracks, while the hammer tanks are going to be getting the repairs from that structure. And Happy, again, he is just in such an incredible position versus PK. PK needs to find some way to flank around his opponent's units. He needs to find some way to do some serious damage to stop the war machine of this Soviet player. He cannot engage head on. He does not have the units to do that. And unfortunately, these two multi-gunner turrets, as strong as they may be, they're going to need some great Vindicator bombs as well to help them out. And then he's only curbed the tide. He has not stopped the onslaught if he kills these hammer tanks, because we've got constant reinforcements pumping forward for our Soviet player. More and more infantry, tanks, and even a couple of aircraft may be streaming across the map. The airfield is still most likely active in the main base of Happy, but he's deciding not to use it. He's just pushing ground units on hard lesson. And YZZD PK is learning a hard lesson about Soviet players. There's the infect of that MCV, just overkill to the absolute max. The GG comes down, and YZZD Pika, aka PK, will drop a second map in this series to NACL's Happy. And what an incredibly strong game from Happy to kind of continue on our series. Now, the server did just reset, so don't get too excited. Nothing crazy is going to happen. And game number 3 is going to be coming right up. This best of 7 is looking a little bit one-sided, but it is not over, not by a long shot. Welcome back to Island Arena for game number 3 of the finals best of 7. On the left side, the man who needs your cheers, the Chinese player from YZZD, it is PK, the blue allies, and as the green Soviets on the right side from Team NACL leading 2-0, it is Happy. There's that single racks into the refinery, and it's airfield first from our Chinese player. He is looking for some sort of a cryo rush, most likely, although sometimes players just want to get a Vindicator, snipe an engineer, and get ahead that way. They're also going to be relying on their ability to split bombs well versus their opponents, but there's a second racks on the way for our Soviet player. He knows he's going to need some flak troopers, and he could just go for that refinery after that. We'll see. As you can see, PK is like, oh, there's no engineer. You can see he was heading over that way, and now he's just going to have to get some nice bomb splits, which is always nice to see players who can consistently split bombs perfectly. Happy, on the other hand, ooh, the MCV actually packs up immediately for PK, but Happy, on the other hand, has gotten himself a healthy number of flak troopers. Those are not cheap flak troopers either. So his refinery is delayed, his eco is a little bit in shambles, but as long as he's able to take out these Vindicators, then he's going to be in an alright position. PK needs to be very careful that he does not donate away these Vindicators. Yeah, taking a couple of shots, turning around, getting out of there is a good idea. He could potentially come in here, see if he can snipe down a reactor, maybe a barracks, although I think the power plant would be the better option in that case. If he can throw his opponent into that low power mode, then that would actually be pretty good. We'll see if he actually decides to do that. Some players like to just drop a couple of bombs and then, yeah, wait for the sell-off and then bomb the other reactor. In this case, PK is not going to be doing that. He is averting his Vindicators. He may be forced to sell off. Ooh, nice bark there from the dog. This could be the opportunity that PK needs to get ahead in this game because he needs to stop the flak troopers. He needs to keep his aircraft alive, and getting the dog to get the bark off is the first step. There's the split from Happy, slapping that X key, trying to get some range between him and the dogs. He doesn't have enough conscripts. Whoa, that bark actually locked down almost half a dozen of those flak troopers. He doesn't have the DPS from the conscript to really lock down these dogs and be effective at killing them off. As a result, all of these flak troopers are going down. This is a ton of money invested by Happy into these flak troopers, so much so that he even gets a heroic dog. Well, he gives a heroic dog to PK for it. Now, of course, the reactor will have to be rebuilt, and NACL Happy is like, failed hard, yeah. Keeping those flak troopers alive is so important. Going for the reactor is such a good idea. Even going to be forcing the cancel of that refinery. Now, Happy isn't necessarily out of it yet. Technically, he's just in a very bad situation. All right? Look. You know, he can still take this back. It's just going to be very difficult for him. PK, on the other hand, may be looking for a relatively quick third refinery, and he can be safe to take that. He needs to make sure that he keeps the pressure on, continually bombs away these reactors with his Vindicators. That's how he stays on top of his opponent while he does whatever he wants. He could go for a third and a fourth refinery. He's chosen to go for tier 2, which is the more aggressive option. That's the bomb saving that I like to see. You drop a couple of bombs, your opponent sells off the reactor, and then suddenly you do a ton of damage to another reactor and potentially even finish it off. Cryocopter out on the map. This is the aggro option. When you're ahead, you have a couple of things that you can do. You can try to push whatever advantage you have directly in an aggressive manner, or you can indirectly go for the expansion, go for the eco, and try to get yourself further ahead, but end the game in a longer time frame. In this particular situation, PK has gone for the aggressive option. He's looking to lock down those refineries. He knows his opponent is going to be in an awkward situation. Now, we do have not a lot of infantry out on the map, which infantry can be a very powerful way for allies to really push an efficiency advantage. PK going to be cleaning up one of the bullfrogs without too much trouble. That Vindicator hasn't taken quite enough damage to get cleaned up by the second bullfrog, which means this harassment is going to continue on. Actually, those bombs dropped kind of prematurely, but it's up to 3 cryocopters now, and PK has just got quite a force. But, oh, PK, please be careful. Do not lose your MCV. The careful micro of the Terror Drone locking down the MCV, going for the Infect. It doesn't matter all that much, but it's the cute moves from PK, or from Happy, trying to do what he can to come back in this game. Oh my gosh, he's just going straight up for the push. The GG comes down. Every kind of move that Happy has tried to make has not worked out. And with the fast airfield into the cryocopters and the perfect control from PK, not making any bad decisions, just continuously making all of the right decisions. Is he just going to go for the cell? I mean, you can't hope to really do too much else with the Vindicators right there being so close. Oh my word, he actually gets the airfield. PK did not sell it. He didn't want to sell it because he didn't want to lose the Vindicators, but, I mean, still. There's not a whole lot that Happy can do. He doesn't have an MCV. He does actually have a War Factory. If only there were oil derricks on this map for him to be able to do anything with. Oh my word, he got an Apollo out. PK, please build a barracks. Please build a barracks. PK drops another airfield. He now has a place to land his units. He can even get an Apollo himself if he really wants. He could also just drop a barracks and start putting on some pressure directly onto this airfield. That's a power plant over here. It's not any sort of sneaky naval yard. Nothing quite like that for PK. They say it's not over till it's over, and I guess this is what they mean. Multi-gunner turret comes down for PK. There we go. Happy finally loses the game. He had that hope against hope that players sometimes get where they think maybe, just maybe, I can make the unreal comeback. It was not possible, not against PK. Happy drops his first map, but the series will continue on. And Game 4 takes us to Battle Base Delta, of course, made by Yellow Jacket. A shout out to that guy, but our orange allies in the bottom left side from YZZD bringing it back with a 1-2 score. It's PK. On the right side, the Blue Soviets bringing us that interesting action, so we're not watching an AVA Finals. From Team NACL, the power player, it is Happy. Allies versus Soviets. This very well could have been an Allies versus Allies final. And maybe if we end up seeing Happy get a little bit desperate and we end up going to something like an ace match, then maybe we will end up seeing that Allies versus Allies match. It depends. Happy could be feeling, you know, I want to win this tournament. I don't feel confident as Soviets. I want to do something a little bit more, stand a little bit stronger, in my opinion. And maybe that means going for Allies. Players have their comfort factions, the factions that they like to play. We do have the Engineer coming out for YZZDPK. Should be able to grab that garage without too much trouble. Riptides may be in the order, because that is a lot of infantry coming out for Happy. Second refinery just now going down. Can PK actually get out Riptides in time? He has so many conscripts heading his way. Now, actually, he's going to be getting some nice splash damage off on these conscripts. He has to be wary of the bears as they're coming in here. There's the bark. A nice shot there for that dog, but it's not enough to stop Happy, and Happy will continue to flame down this garage with his Molotov cocktails. He's gonna burn it to the ground, and he doesn't even care. Of course, he did capture the garage himself, and he is going to be going for an oil derrick as well. There's going to be the War Factory. It could be into a lot of sickles. Bullfrogs are most likely going to be on the table, and with the garage, even the Vindicators are going to have a little bit of trouble with those Bullfrogs. The first Riptide is out. The naval yard has been purchased. And unfortunately for PK, he spent that 500 credits capturing that garage, but it didn't do him any good. Airfield in an interesting position. It is going to create some pathing problems for our Soviet player. The Terror Drone is now out on the map, which means the Molotov cocktails cannot be dodged, and this Riptide will be getting taken down. Absolutely destroyed there as a second Riptide rolls up. PK, please do not commit any more of these Riptides directly into the jaws of that Terror Drone, but he has to stop the infantry onslaught somehow. Does he have a multi-gunner turret queued? No. So even if he had a Peacekeeper out, he wouldn't be able to stop the onslaught. He wouldn't be able to stop the massacre of his airfield, and this kind of brings us back to game number 1. It started with the destruction of that airfield by Happy, the conscript spam leading him to be in an incredibly strong situation. One Vindicator does escape. The MCV is heading out on the offense, but if a terror drone comes back up to the front lines, PK is going to be in a ton of trouble. Thought maybe that was a terror drone out on the water. It is not. It's just a bear getting that scouting information. The dog comes in for PK, but what it sees, he's going to already pretty much know. He will see that the MCV has already moved on to that third refinery location, but he's already seen the bullfrogs. He's already seen the massive infantry. He knows how his opponent opened. The Conyard getting targeted down, so many Molotov cocktails being pushed at it, and the Vindicator getting thrown all the way over into the corner of the map. He just cannot find a safe spot to be. And unfortunately, because of the terror drone, PK just does not have a lot of options. Yep, the MCV getting cleaned up. And unfortunately for PK, he's going to need quite the miracle hold to make this work. Oh, he actually does have some Vindicator bombs left, so he sacrifices the Vindicator. Can he actually escape with the MCV? He might just barely be able to escape, as there comes the Riptide to clean up some of the conscripts, and it's still going to be an incredible uphill battle, not only for this Riptide, but all for YZZD PK's remaining game life. However, with the score of 2-1 for Happy and a best of 7, PK cannot afford to just give this game away, because then it's match point. Happy will be at that 3-point advantage for the entirety of the series. And then PK has to defend everything, because at that point, with 3 points and in that match point situation, Happy can just do whatever cheesy, easy win sort of build he wants to try to finish out the series and take this home. There's the crush of the Riptide, the MCV being brought out on the offense, and PK needs to engage efficiently, but he has to stop. He has to build his barracks, get an engineer, and of course every single ground vehicle of Happy is going to be getting repairs. The engineer comes out, insta-heal on the Conyard, back into the airfield. He may have to just chance it and go tier 2. Now, the Bullfrogs aren't in incredibly high numbers, but with the economy advantage, Happy can afford to engage and give away some units. He doesn't have to be as efficient and as careful as PK. Now, PK is going for the Riptide loaded with infantry. This can be a game-winning move, but he's going to have to kill so many structures of his opponent that it's just not likely to be that game-winning move that PK needs. Cryocopter is most likely on the way, should be popping out in a couple of seconds, and this is the bastion of hope that PK has. He's dropped down a multi-gunner turret, which has kind of diverted the army a little bit. Now, of course, the Riptide is getting locked down by that terror drone, and unfortunately for PK, he doesn't have any additional production facilities other than the airfield to really get any units out onto the field. There's the 4th refinery coming up for Happy. PK does get the terror drone locked down by, the Cryocopter taking a lot of damage. The Riptide does eliminate the terror drone, but he trades it out for the Cryocopter. One Bullfrog does go down. The aircraft are not going to be very effective as long as Happy continues to pressure with the anti-air. There's only a Javelin Trooper and 2 Peacekeepers inside of that Riptide. That's not quite the, army killing force that you want. The Hammer Tank goes for the crush, gets the Javelin Trooper, maybe getting the Peacekeeper as well, as the satellites get called down onto either the airfield. No, it's going to be the power plant, and that should be enough to clean up that power plant. Throws YZD PK into that low power mode, and unfortunately for him, his turrets are now useless, as they get surrounded by those hammer tanks. Just absolutely a shutdown in this game. That airfield right on the front lines didn't do as much as YZD PK needed, and now he is just in shambles as he is being taken apart bit by bit. The hammer tanks trashing his economy, effectively cutting it in half, since he was never able to grab an oil derrick. And this refinery getting targeted down, it's forced to be sold off. PK is up against the ropes. In this game, his life is on the line, and Happy is closing in, tightening his grip. And he is going to be going for the killing blow. He's secured himself that 4th expansion. He's got an oil derrick. PK blames it on the map, drops the GG, and the 3-1 will happen for Happy. But it's not over till it's over, folks. It is not over till it's over. People have been in bad situations before, and they have made the comebacks. PK has shown us that he has the fortitude to do that, even if it means he has to airfield first cheese every single game. We'll see if he does something crazy. This is his last hope in game number 5. Welcome to game number 5. This could be the last game of the New Year's New Maps tournament, but we shall see, because spawning on the left side from YZZD, the unlikely player to make it here, it is the Orange Allies PK. And on the right side, the dominating NACL Blue Soviets, it is Happy. He has been playing so well today. He continues to play well in this series. No barracks opening from YZZD PK. There's the airfield. This is always an option as allies. This is always one of those things that's on the table. It's the airfield first. Now there is an oil derrick, which means this engineer might get sniped. It is quite the drive for the engineer to actually get there. PK is going to be heading out. He's not hopefully going to be dropping any bombs on bears, because that would be a bit of a waste considering there is a wonderful engineer that he can kill. First conscript is coming out, but it's cell of the barracks. He's going to be going right into the bullfrogs. He's not going to be messing around with any flak troopers. Nice bomb splitting there from PK. Quite reasonable. And of course that war factory is going to be the important thing. Getting that war factory up, getting the bullfrogs up is so important. But a flak cannon may also be dropped. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen it just yet. There's the extra reactor. He's definitely going to need that. Now, one thing that YZZD PK can do, now that he's got the 3 Vindicators there, is he can start trading off which Vindicators are, active circling and using the other one to try to do a bit of damage to the infrastructure of his opponent. The MCV has been moved. One of the changes, I believe, is with 3rd refinery location. It got shifted from somewhere else. I don't remember where it was on the old version of the map. But the 3rd refinery is relatively close for each player to take, which means that this game can lend itself to alternate sorts of games. But in this particular case, we're really just seeing the fast airfield for PK, because he does not want to go out to any infantry craziness. Vindicator is going to be dropping some bombs and barely escaping there, as that bullfrog just does not have enough DPS to finish off that Vindicator by just a hair. The first multi-gunner turret does go down for YZZD PK. 3rd refinery on the way for Happy, but he's also up to those 2 bullfrogs. And of course, with one bullfrog basically being dead, it's not quite the same as you needing the 2 Vindicators to kill each of the bullfrogs. He can actually clean up 3 bullfrogs with, I guess it would probably be with like 4 Vindicators, but still. Oh, Vindicator's going to be coming in. 2 bullfrogs do go down, trades it out for 1 Vindicator. Not great for our allied player, but he has been able to curb the little number of bullfrogs that are out on the map. We'll have to see if PK decides to go for infantry in this game. He hasn't really been committing super hard to infantry in most of the games. He's instead been going for more airfield-based play. Even the Riptides didn't really work out for him in a lot of these matches. So maybe a heavy infantry-based composition would be a good idea. Not all Peacekeepers, though. We'll have to see if he decides to go for anything else, because there's actually, no garrisonable structures. Ooh, loses another Vindicator. Not good for PK, but there's no garrisonable structures on this map. And, of course, the old trick of planting the bears so close to the airfield that you actually force the allied player to splash damage their own structure a little bit when they bomb the bears. Cutesy little trick there by Happy. Third refinery up and running. Fourth refinery may be on the way relatively soon here for Happy. Neither one of these players has grabbed their oil derricks, but that's something that they can do in the near future. One Bullfrog goes down. One Vindicator gets eliminated for sure. A second one may have gone down as well. I'm not actually sure. It looks like maybe one went down. At least one Bullfrog went down. And of course the Terror Drone is here, but PK has walled up his refineries. He's also got this multi-gunner turret here. And the camping of the airfield has begun. Both of the Vindicators end up going down. And that Vindicator got some nice RNG for PK. He was able to crash onto one of those Bullfrogs, but Happy has worked himself up into a nearly 4 refinery situation, and PK does not have a ground army. He may be trying to go, yes, he is indeed trying to go for that oil derrick. And PK, I mean, I'm not actually sure what the point of selling off that wall was. He literally just allowed his opponent to get that Terror Drone a line of sight. Vindicators going down. The camping of the airfield is indeed real. The MCV is on the move for PK. And he is going to need one incredible hold to stop the the Soviet war machine once it gets pumping. 1 refinery, 1 oil derrick versus soon to be 4 refinery, 1 oil derrick for our Soviet player. As that is the kind of economic advantage that lends itself very well to just making a ton of units. You just make infinite units, you spam whatever you want, because you've got so much more eco than your opponent, they can't possibly outproduce you. Oh, the deploy of the MCV is not going to happen! The Terror Drone gets the infect, and this MCV might actually be too far away to do anything. Pika has been defeated, and NACL's Happy will take the New Year, New Maps tournament from the Chinese player. He will indeed defeat PK and YZZD 4-1. And congratulations there to NACL's Happy, claiming that title for the Saltiest Clan in Red Alert 3. And that will do it for New Year, New Maps. Thank you all very much for watching. It's been a ton of fun. We've seen some very weird games. We've seen some all-in sort of cheeses, but we've had some fun on some non-traditional maps. So thank you all very much for watching. I've enjoyed it very much. And this is Sybert signing out.